Good evening and welcome to WTJX Channel 12's coverage of the 2024 general election results. I'm Marcelina Ventura Douglas and we're broadcasting live from our studio here in St. Croix. While the presidential race unfolds across the nation, we're focused on the races that matter to us here at home. Whether you're watching on WTJX-TV Channel 12, streaming live on Facebook, or listening on WTJX-FM 93.1, we'll be bringing you up-to-the-minute results throughout the evening on all the local ballot races, including the Virgin Islands Legislature, the Delegate to Congress, delegates to the 6th Constitutional Convention, and the Boards of Election and Education. Later, we'll hear directly from some of the candidates as they call in with their reactions. It's going to be an exciting night, so stay with us. Now, let me introduce you to our panelists who will guide us through the results and provide in-depth analysis as the evening unfolds. Raven Phillips is a writer and community advocate involved in civic engagement across the Virgin Islands. She recently co-hosted The Fish Fry, a series of candidate discussions in the St. Thomas-St. John district. Raven, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Janika Simon is the editor of the Virgin Islands Consortium, a leading news outlet covering politics, business, and community issues in the territory. With a background in STEM and communication, she provides the public with what she calls nutritious information. Janika, thank you for being here.
Such a pleasure. Thanks.
Jamila Russell is a community activist and political strategist who has been a respected voice for the territory for over 20 years. She brings humor and insight to her weekly radio show, Just Jamila, on WSTX 970 AM. Jamila, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And former Senator Adla Fonsi Donestog Jr. served 7 terms in the legislature and briefly as Senate President. Advocating for animal welfare, environmental protection, and taxpayer rights, he now leads Fine Print Consulting Services, where he focuses on strategic planning. Thank you for being here, Fonsi.
Pleasure being here.
Welcome to the show, everyone. And just for tonight, we've agreed to address each other by first names, okay? So please, no one go complaining to the CEO, okay? So before we dive into the ballot discussion, let's talk about today's events. The voting centers just closed after a busy day across the territory. Jamila, did you get a chance to visit any of the voting centers today?
I sure did. It would not be an election if I didn't visit a polling site. I early voted, but I like this day. This is a day where our voices are heard, and I like to go out. I like to electioneer. I like to be amongst the candidates, their supporters. I like to talk trash with people. And so I got to do some of that today from Frederickstead to Christiansted and back.
Nice.
So it was fun.
Good. Janika, you got a chance to drive around. Tell me some of your thoughts on what you saw out there.
I thought the atmosphere was really cool. It was nice to see people, gathered together, waving their candidate signs at the legally prescribed distance. I even heard, I think, a jingle or two from one of the candidates. So the atmosphere was really vibrant and enthusiastic, and it was very nice to see people participating in the democratic process and, just encouraging others to exercise their franchises.
Nice. And Raven, I know you told me that you early voted in prior discussion, but tell me what you saw out there.
So I got a chance to take a look at one of the polling centers over here in St. Croix, and I think what stuck out to me most was the range in ages that I saw out there. I think it's really nice when we can get both the young and some of the elderly in our community together to support the different candidates. It's a nice gathering of the ages.
Nice. And Fonsi, you got a chance to drive around in the on St. Thomas, before you came over. Tell me what you saw over there on St. Thomas.
Well, first of all, I had the opportunity to exercise that option, early voting for the first time.
Nice.
I've never done it in the past. I had the chance to roll, to actually circulate among the 4 polling areas in St. Thomas, and people seemed to be extremely enthusiastic, and it wasn't anything that I didn't expect. I really expected it. However, I expected the candidates to be a little bit more aggressive in this campaign, because after all, I think in order for you to separate yourself from just the general all the candidates that are running, you have to be able to separate yourself, and I don't think that the newcomers were doing a good job in separating themselves.
Oh, that's a very interesting take. I know we had at least one incident today at the Claudio Marco Center where a candidate for the Board of Education was actually taken into handcuffs. Mary Moorhead was there was some issue with how she wanted to cast her ballot, and ultimately, police were called, and she had to be, escorted out. She did ultimately get to vote at the former St. Dunstan School. But Jamila, tell me, what are your thoughts on hearing that situation unfold?
I think it's just unfortunate. I think that a lot of times we cause the community to have a sense of distrust in the electoral process. And I think that, having that kind of disruption leads to conspiracy theories, leads to questions about results, leads to why did this happen? And so it's just unfortunate that happened, and that happened to somebody who's running to be to serve. She's on the ballot for the Board of Education, and to have a candidate behave in a manner that resulted in an arrest or a detainment or an incident, whatever it was, ultimately is just extremely unfortunate.
Yeah. Raven, I want to get your thoughts on what, hearing that situation unfold, as someone who is of a younger generation, hearing that, what does that say to you?
I think it speaks to a level of distrust, I think, that's going on within elections. I think that it's important to note that though our system allows us to have certain opinions and push for different ideas and ways of conducting ourselves while at the polls, we should make it a point to remain respectful, not only for ourselves, but for the younger generations that are watching.
Yeah, definitely. Now, let's turn our attention to the candidates on the ballot, starting with the senatorial race. Here are the candidates in the St. Croix district. We have former Senator Kurt Viale, a Democrat, incumbent Senator Franklin D. Johnson, independent, former Senator Oakland Benta, independent, incumbent Senator Samuel Sam Carrion, independent, Hubert L. Frederick, Democrat, incumbent Senate President, Senator Novo Francis Jr., Democrat, Troy C. Williams, independent. We have incumbent Senator Diane T. Capehart, a Democrat, Tammy M. Smith, independent, Crystal Hardy, a Republican, Norman John Baptiste, independent, incumbent Senator Kenneth Kenny Gittins, a Democrat, Monarch Wakefield, independent, Julian Vera, also an independent, and we have Lisa Charles, independent, Clifford Joseph, a Democrat, Eric Goutreau, the second, independent, incumbent Senator Maurice James, a Democrat, Jelani Ritter, independent, and Diane Prosper, also an independent. And Jamila, tell me, how are you feeling about the lineup here for the St. Croix district?
Well, to piggyback off of what Atlas said, or Fonzie said a minute ago, some of these candidates haven't done nothing to distinguish themselves from the incumbents, and the quality of candidates, or the caliber of candidates in the St. Croix field leaves me wanting for more, leaves me wanting for better. And I think that has to do with the ability for people who want to serve to be able to get on the ballot. They have to take leave if they want to, or resign if you hold a certain position, to be able to get on the ballot. And I don't think that we allow for the best candidates to put themselves out there. I applaud everybody who's taken the chance to put themselves out there to serve. However, the candidate list was unimpressive to me.
Mm-hmm. And, former Senator Kurt Viale finished at the top of the Democratic Party. And, how do you think that might shape the outcome of the general election, Mr. Fonzie? Sorry.
Well, I think you have to understand that Kurt Viale is being treated as like he's an incumbent. Mm-hmm. He took a hiatus in running for a higher office, which is for Governor of the Virgin Islands. And I think that he still maintains a certain support base. Now, how does it change the lineup? He's almost guaranteed a seat by virtue of coming out of the primary with a support base. Going into a general election, we can describe that as a momentum. that he's coming out with. And I think that based on what I have been observing, there could potentially be 3 new faces with one knocking at the door.
Oh, who do you think may be knocking at the door?
To single someone out, I think the guy Jelani Ritter is just right there at the foot, you know, and it could potentially be a surprise. Of course, somebody has to lose in order for someone to win. One seat was vacant with Javon James, and I think that the voters are looking at him as a breath of fresh air because you have one that just left the Senate that was young. So it might be that the voters are thinking, let's give another young man a chance to enter the institution.
Jenica, I want to get your thoughts on what Fancy just said.
So, along with what he just said, as well as what he was saying before in terms of candidates not really putting themselves out there and doing the work to get themselves known, I agree with him that, you know, Mr. Ritter Jelani had some momentum on St. Croix, but I think that not only is he another young face that could potentially replace Javon, but he is one of the new candidates that has put a lot of effort into his campaign. So you are hearing, you know, his thoughts on various things, and you're seeing him out there. You know, and to go back to what you were saying before, some of the candidates were looking for their photos. They don't have a social media presence. So how can you think that you can canvass votes and gain support and gain knowledge and gain notoriety among the public if you don't even have your face out there, you don't have a social media platform to send people to when you're doing your media rounds, you know, where do you direct interested parties to go? And I think that he, you know, has run a decent campaign. It comes down to marketing, especially when you're not an incumbent, you don't have that name and face recognition. You really have to push. I think that he's one of the new faces that did so, and he will benefit from that, I think, more than the others who did not make a similar effort.
I think one person who definitely gave very much of a push was Nellie O'Reilly, who actually lost in the primary and then launched a write-in campaign with 139 names, actually, including some unusual ones like zero, not she, never, and go home. Jamila, it was very interesting. Tell me, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's ridiculous. In a nutshell, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think that we live in a society where you ran as a Democrat, you knew the rules, you lost in a Democratic primary, and that you should exercise some sort of respect for the system. And what she's doing is a blatant disrespect for the system, and it reeks of hypocrisy. I remember her taking Alicia Chucky Hansen's matter when Alicia Chucky Hansen had launched her write-in.
Yes.
Nellie Rivera O'Reilly said that write-in candidates are not candidates on the ballot. So it's not only hypocritical, I think it's disrespectful to the Democratic voters who said that they did not want her to represent them on the general election ballot for the party.
Yeah, and only because you have had a personal relationship with, you know, Jamila brought up Chucky Hansen. You had a relationship with her. You both ran for higher office together. Tell me, what are your thoughts on this?
And I've served with both of them in an institution. I think that sometimes if you establish the wrong behavior, any kind of inconsistency, you can't say you're running today and not running tomorrow, and then say tomorrow that you're running again, and then it goes back and forth, because at some point, you're going to give or display some level of uncertainty, you know, and I think voters are looking for consistency. And going back to what the previous speakers, a couple of them said, sometimes it's all about messaging and consistency. And I think that a lot of I'm not sure that Nellie came back with that strategy in mind, with the repetition and consistency, because something obviously went wrong in the primary. Some of us expected her to run a little higher. And like Jamila said, I think there should have been respect for the system, and there should have been some consistency reflecting on positions of the past that she took in the past. And, you know, it is what it is. There's a writing campaign going. and we have to wait and see what happens.
With 139 names.
Yeah.
139 names. Now, interestingly enough, former Senator Kenneth Mapp endorsed Samuel Carrion and Frankie Johnson, who are not Democrats, but the Democratic Party in the past has criticized Kurt Viale and Nellie O'Reilly for siding with non-Democrats. And at a campaign event, last month, Democratic Senator Diane Capehart actually endorsed 2 independent senators. So, I think we want to play a portion of what she said at that rally.
I'm a Democrat, but that don't matter to me because I look at these 2 individuals who I serve with in this 35th. Senator Carrion, this is my first time really getting to know him, but I like working with him. He's a good guy. He's a public servant, and that means a lot for me. Frankie and I, we go way back, way back. We share family members together. To me, he's like family to me. Vote number 6, carry on, I am calling I number. And vote number 4, because these are my colleagues who I respect and I want to see them return. And I ask for your support because I would be one of the women senators to return into the 36.
All right, so you have had somewhat of a love-hate relationship. Maybe I wouldn't say love-hate relationship, but you've been in the Democratic Party previously. How do you think that this is going to affect?
Well, I'm still a Democrat.
You're still a Democrat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tell me, how do you think that this is going to affect Senator Capehart's relationship with the Democratic Party?
Well, it all depends, because understand that each one of the persons or individuals that she endorsed have a constituency. How far she takes it and trying to regroup or capitalize or benefit from their support basis is going to depend on her. She could potentially get a backlash from the Democratic machine itself that they just choose not to support her going in to a general election.
And Jamila, I want to go to you because you were once a young Democrat.
Yes, I was.
So tell me, what are your thoughts on how you think this is going to, Capehart is going to fare in the lineup of, going up against, we have all these Democrats. We have a lot of independents as well, too.
Mm-hmm. I pride myself on loyalty. And when I felt that my views no longer aligned with the Democratic Party, I left so that I could be able to say what I needed to say and not come across as being a hypocrite. I think that if you run under the party ballot, you're supposed to be asking for support on the party ticket. That is how the system is set up to work. I do think that Governor Mapp on St. Croix still holds potential political capital and power. He was in a territory visiting. He was at this rally for Senators Johnson and Carrion, and I think that Senator Capehart, to her, she saw this as an opportunity to gain supporters from Kenneth Mapp. And so she endorsed Frankie Johnson and Samuel Carrion in hopes that their supporters, the Ken Mapp supporters, will give her some support, because the talk on the street is that she's potentially one of those senators who is weak. She didn't run particularly high in the Democratic primary, and there's some strong contenders. While the candidate pool on St. Croix isn't particularly strong, there are a few. You have Clifford Joseph, Lorenzo Frederick, Jelani Ritter. Those are the 3 standout new faces in the political arena. It is almost a certainty that VLA is getting the seat that Javon James is vacating. Mm-hmm. So Senator Capehart is seen as one of those who is struggling to hold on to her seat. And this was, to me, a last-ditch effort to be able to drum up support to make it 1 out of the 7. It don't matter where you fall, just as long as you don't fall 8.
This is true. And, we mentioned that there's 1 seat that is open in the St. Croix district. There's also 1 seat that is also open in the St. Thomas district. And I want to shift our focus now to the senatorial candidates on the ballot from St. Thomas. And I'll read through the full list of names. We have Derek Callwood, a Republican; Margaret Price, ICM; incumbent Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, Independent; Eugene Farrell, Independent; Dr. Krishna Kolaru, Independent; Incumbent Senator Milton Potter, a Democrat. Avery Lewis, a Democrat. We also have Collister Foy, a Republican. Incumbent Senator Ray Fonseca, a Democrat. Chanel Fina Francis, Democrat. Incumbent Senator Carla Joseph, Democrat. Michael Smith, a Democrat. Incumbent Senator Dwayne DeGraff, Independent. And also Incumbent Senator Marvin Blyden, a Democrat. And also, so Raven, I want you to tell me, this is your district. What are your thoughts on the lineup for the St. Thomas District Senators?
I feel like every election I go into it with the hopes that the candidates will better incorporate the use of social media in their campaigns. And this year, I don't think it was quite where it could have been. There were some improvements from last year. I have hope that by the time the next election rolls around that incumbents and new people recognize really the value in incorporating social media. I think that a lot of people have a lot of criticisms of it. I have my own, but at the end of the day, it is a tool. If you're going to be on the radio, it's useful to just have your phone out and go live. So that way, those that can't tune into the radio to hear you, they can go back to what you said later. It's a very simple thing to do. Jamila's very familiar with this. And Facebook is free. I can give a little bit of patience for those that may not take the step of having a website just because of the costs that can incur. You have to constantly upkeep that. You have to constantly pay somebody to make the content, to make your copy and things like that.
Yeah.
But a Facebook page is free.
It's free. This is true. And, also in the St. Thomas District, we have all 7 Democratic senators that moved right ahead, because they were the only ones. Tell me, what does this say about political interest in St. Thomas?
Well, I think that because of some of the experiences of the Democratic Party, I could get specific about a lot of things. There's been some bad publicity, bad associations, and may have been polarizing to the party itself. A lot of people have lost a lot of interest in the party, and I think what the party is trying to do right now is to resurrect that support and that respectability that they had in the past. I see one new person knocking at the door to fill the seat that was vacated by Donna Gregory, Senator Donna Gregory, and I see potentially a dark horse.
Okay, so I asked you who were knocking at the door for St. Croix. So I have to ask you, who's knocking at the door in St. Thomas?
I think Avery Lewis stand a good chance, simply because he have that incumbent, the administration behind him. They have already committed to supporting him. And I see potentially, believe it or not, I see a Derek Calwood creeping up there, because as a result of an endorsement that he got from one of the unions, and basically just his pitch and appearance. You also have a young comer coming up in Chanel Francis.
Yes.
I think Chanel could be right there in the midst as well, because she has some of the political pundits from the Democratic Party who have actually came out to try and push her campaign. And I think that district, the voters over there in that district, is willing to give someone a chance.
Yeah. Jenica, I want to, Governor Albert Bryan Jr. actually endorsed Avery Lewis. What do you think that's going to do for his standing in the campaign?
Well, I think it's certainly going to assist him just based on having the weight of that endorsement coming in. He's also the St. Thomas and John administrator, so he kind of has that quasi-incumbency name recognition. So I think it certainly is going to help him. But to what Raven and Adler was saying, the newbies, the new kids on the block are seriously hurting themselves with the lack of push, the lack of effort, the lack of, the social media presence, as Raven was saying, because the incumbents have such a huge advantage. They are, on being broadcast over the airwaves, sometimes several times a week, depending on, the committee hearings and so on. So the people of the territory are seeing these faces and hearing from them constantly over the 2 years. So anybody that wants to come in new has to fight against some serious headwinds. And I think the lack of effort that is putting in is really working against them. So I think that Mr. Lewis, just by dint of his current position, the endorsements that he's gotten, has a huge boost in that arena that the other newbies don't have.
And I just want to clarify that Avery Lewis, he was the St. Thomas Water Island administrator.
Water Island, I'm
and he
sorry.
has taken leave. You know, it's now being held by Kevin Rodriguez.
Yeah.
But Jamila, I want to ask you, former Governor Kenneth Mapp also endorsed Eugene Farrell. How do you think that that's going to help him? Do you think that that helps him in any way?
Well, no. In a nutshell, no, I don't. I think that the endorsement, Kenneth Mapp's stronghold is in the St. Croix district. The St. Thomas, St. John district has never been his stronghold. I think that those people that would already vote for Eugene because of his affiliation with Ken Mapp were already going to come out and vote for Eugene Farrell. I don't think that Governor Mapp's endorsement brought anybody new. He didn't grow his base. So I don't think that the former governor's endorsement brought in Farrell's base. But I wanted, I hear Janika and Raven talking about social media presence. I am a dinosaur probably because I am, I just recently, I started to put my talk show on Facebook because of the younger people. However, the Virgin Islands isn't the voting people, the people who come out to vote consistently election after election aren't the social media people, aren't the younger generation that walks around with their phones all the time. They just aren't. The people who consistently come out to vote are the radio listeners, are the people who tune in to analyze this every day, who tunes in to Just Jamila, who calls into the radio programs. The young people talk a good game sometimes on social media, but the numbers don't match. And so I don't know that having a quote-unquote presence on social media and going viral or not doing that is an end all to somebody's campaign. But I think it's important, but I don't think
Sure,
it's
go ahead and jump in.
I mean, one of my other hats prior to being a journalist was working in corporate communications, and what I did was marketing. So we know that the young people don't get out to vote, but we also know that they're on social media constantly. Here is a pool of untapped voters that nobody is even trying to get. So you're listening to, you're appealing to the radio listeners. These are people who already have preferred candidates. These are people who have been in the political process for a while. They like, whoever they like. And so that's why I was saying that, especially for the new people who are trying to make headway, I take your point, and I agree with you, Jamila, that you're not necessarily going to just get a flood of, the 18 to 26s, but this is the group of people that you have to start to cultivate. And if you're just leaving them, you are not reaching out, you're not saying, hey, come out, you're not running these campaigns, then you're just leaving votes basically on the table.
But Raven, I want Raven to jump in here because you're a part of the younger generation as well. So I still consider we're part of the younger generation.
I take myself out of that category.
Raven, I want to get your input in this.
I think that building upon both of these ladies' ideas here, like a lot of the work that we do with VI Crawl as it relates to the fish fry, the whole goal is really trying to bring that younger generation into the fold, give them the knowledge that they need to so that they can meaningfully participate in the political system. I think that it's kind of a vicious cycle where we have young people who do not participate, and therefore the candidates don't really cater to them, and because they're not being catered to, they don't vote. And it's kind of this vicious cycle, and the only way that we're really gonna try and end it is if we can all really work on bringing them into the fold, giving them the information that they need so that they can participate, and using all the tools necessary to kind of bring them in. And I think that social media is an excellent way to do that. It's about, I feel that oftentimes as a young person in the territory, there is this pervasive feeling of unwillingness to meet the young people where they're at. I think that we are very unwilling to meet them where they're at. There's this immediate assumption that we don't care, that we don't have priorities. And it's not that we don't have priorities. Our priorities look a little bit different, but that doesn't automatically make them wrong. There needs to be, we need each other. The younger generation and the older generation, we need each other. And the only way that we're going to be able to move forward is if we can find a way to meet each other where we're at.
I appreciate that input. Let's move on now to the candidates on the ballot for Senator at Large. There are two names that are on the ballot. We have Lorelei Marsh Monsanto, an independent, who is challenging incumbent Senator Angel Bolquez Jr., a Democrat. Now, Raven, I want to go back to you. Tell me, what are your thoughts on the two candidates?
I think that this has been a very, very interesting race to see. I think that coming into early on into the election, there was like a sense of disappointment that it might have been an uncontested race until Lorelei made her ambitions clear. And I think that the people of the territory have a serious choice ahead of them. I know that it's very clear that Angel kind of has an advantage here with name recognition and being an incumbent, but behind Lorelei, there's a very long history of advocacy. Everybody in St. John knows Lorelei for her long history of advocacy and being an activist. And I think that and that grassroots kind of approach that she's had can kind of work in her favor in some ways. I just question whether or not she's been able to broaden her reach to all three islands. Like, she's very well known in St. John for who she is and what she stands for and what she's about. I just know that there's definitely going to be an inherent challenge there in getting that to
translate.
Spread. Yeah.
And I want to go over the popular Rattan poll that came out yesterday and what it reveals about the at-large Senate race. Now, Angel Bolquez Jr. got 56, Lorelei Marsh Monsanto got 34. But not voting was 110 of those who were polled. Jamila, you know, the Rattan poll has historically, it's been around since about 1998. Tell me, what does these results say to you?
Polls are a snapshot of how people feel at a certain time. At a certain time, I have never been one that has taken the Rattan poll with any seriousness attached to it. I think it's a poll. I don't understand how he collects the data, how the poll is conducted, and because I don't give it any real actual thought. I do agree that the race for the delegate, the at-large seat rather, is a race that people are watching because there was such a strong movement against Senator Bolquez and whether or not he's a St. John resident versus whether or not he lives in St. Thomas. And there was this whole conversation over the last year and a half about where he lays his head, that, having an alternative, a choice against him on the ballot may help Miss Monsanto. I happen to know her, but I don't think, to Raven's point, anybody in St. Croix or beyond St. John actually knows who she is, what she stands for. I don't think that she's done a good job in messaging. I think a lot of the new candidates, while they haven't had the social media presence that the ladies were talking about, they haven't even done the traditional campaign stuff. The candidates on a whole haven't gone. I haven't seen a lot of canvassing door to door. I haven't heard radio ads. I haven't seen consistent interviews on radio broadcasts. I haven't seen that from, the traditional ways that we campaign in the territory. I haven't seen fish fries being held.
Yeah.
I haven't seen food sales on the side of the road every Saturday. We haven't been seeing that. So while they haven't utilized social media to grab those young voters, they haven't even used the traditional methods to grab those sure people that are going to get up and go out and vote.
Yeah. And Fancy, I want to ask you, 110 not even interested in responding in the poll, while Jamila may, not give it any interest or any thoughts. Tell me, what does that say to you?
Well, at a glance, when I looked at the poll, it's obvious that it's not a scientific poll. There is no margin of error, none whatsoever. So when you're breaking the poll down, you're actually looking at it. For example, they have 200 surveyed. I'm not sure if that was in tranches, in groups, or individuals. 200 individual. I'm not sure that's an effective sampling. I don't know what that would actually represent. I mean, did the poll actually survey or poll people in different neighborhoods from one extreme to the next? And you look at it at a glance, and it doesn't look like a scientific poll. Nevertheless, we know that people walk away with certain perceptions.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to support a winner, regardless of what poll it is. When people see somebody running high in a poll, the first thing they're saying is that, oh yeah, there's stand a chance.
Yeah.
Look what a poll is doing, because not everyone sits down to divest it.
That's so true.
And to go to what Jamila was saying earlier, it's not about being old school. Old school still is the most effective today. That's a fact. People want to know that they know you, that they could touch you, that they could have a conversation with you. And I don't think the candidates was effective in that area. We could talk about social media all day. I got perhaps I get over 120,000 views in a week, on my social media. But that does not necessarily represent votes.
Yeah.
It probably represents only 3% of what you need for a successful campaign. It's all about old school, getting out there, food sales, touching people, interacting with people, sharing perspective with people, and getting them to feel comfortable.
Yes.
Have a comfort zone with you.
Can I speak to it actually?
Sure.
I think that it kind of speaks to a deep sense and a lack of connection, of course, that I think that we're all kind of touching on, and then a lack of confidence that I think it is.
Yeah.
I know, Jamila, you're talking about the matter of residency, and yes, there was certainly a lot of controversy around that, but even further than the issue of residency, it's presence. We need, there's a need to feel that the people that represent us are present, are involved, are connected to the issues that matter most to us, So I think that is something that's really playing a role here, a matter of name recognition, of questions of presence, and a question of confidence of who can really take on that role.
Okay. Yeah. And so I want to turn our attention now to the race for the delegates to Congress. Incumbent Stacey Plaskett is actually facing two challengers this election. Her last election in 2022 was uncontested, and in 2020, she faced only one challenger. In 2018, she also ran uncontested, but now, in 2024, here are the candidates that are on the ballot. We have Ronald Picard, a Republican, Stacey Plaskett, a Democrat, and Ida Smith, an independent. Now, Plaskett has faced scrutiny due to her involvement in a lawsuit related to Jeffrey Epstein. Jamila, I want to ask you, how do you think that this standing might affect her?
Well, I think that it's baked in the bread at this point. People know that she has some involvement. The delegate to Congress, typically that position, whoever gets that seat, unless they, you know how Donald Trump said, I can murder somebody on Fifth Avenue and they'll still support me. We support the delegate to Congress. That person, isn't typically voted out. They can stay there, typically uncontested. But I do think that she has been weakened. I think that the targeted bringing out of information about what she's done or what she hasn't done has weakened her. I think that the delegate to Congress has lost sight of what the role of the delegate to Congress is, and then her affiliation with the Epstein matter has left a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of voters. So the fact that she isn't performing on behalf of the people of the territory, because she isn't, coupled with her involvement, has weakened her, and I think that that'll show in the election tonight.
And, in August, Plaskett did face some backlash for barring activist Karen Dickinson from a public town hall that was happening here on St. Croix. Let's take a look at the portion of the video showing how Dickinson responded.
The Congresswoman indicated that she doesn't want you to be here today because she wants it to be a smooth meeting.
Locking me out of a public meeting and bringing police. You're going on like we there in Baghdad. I was going in there just to listen, but you assume because you know I would pose a challenge. You know I gonna call you out. Go home, Stacy. And people, let me tell you, they got a door and a lock and key.
Janika. I'm so sorry.
Can I just ask a quick question? How long was she out there?
I'm unsure, but Janika, we covered this with you on Comes with the Territory.
Yes.
What impact do you think this has on Plaskett's relationship with constituents? I'm so sorry. I am so sorry.
To answer Raven's question, I mean, we did see the darkness descending in that clip, so it has to be for quite some time. I'm going to give you a personal opinion. I think that as a public official, an elected official, it is your duty to make yourself available to your constituents. I did not like to see the exclusion of this individual. I understand that they have a contentious history. However, I think that you need, as an elected official, to come up with strategies to deal with your detractors, because there will always be detractors, some more vocal than others. And so in a democracy where everybody has the right to freedom of speech, I think that preemptively excluding somebody is not a fantastic look for the delegate. But I think that is not even the biggest issue here. I think that although she does, as Jamila said, have a huge incumbent advantage, I think that her performance during the last Donald Trump administration might be giving some voters pause, because although the national election is not something that we participate in here, people who are thinking about the delegate race are going to be thinking about which president is the delegate going to be serving under, which kind of Congress is the delegate going to be serving in. And given her very prominent position in the impeachment hearings, some voters, I don't have data or polling, scientific or not, to understand how that's impacting voters. But, her Republican opponent made that point that people may be hesitant if they think that it might be another Trump presidency. That would mean that, okay, so now her enemy, so to speak, is in the White House, and her ability to get things done for the Virgin Islands would be severely compromised. And so, that, I think, even maybe more than the Epstein, issue, even more than that issue, might be on the minds of people who are trying to vote strategically in terms of, making sure that the Virgin Islands can get their agenda in the next Congress.
Yeah, and that goes, you spoke about her challenger, Ronald Picard. I actually want to watch a clip from the League of Women Voters Forum on October 21st, where Picard actually challenged Plaskett multiple times.
We're supposed to get a major part of the percentage for the Run-Come movement for every sale of every bottle. But it's been at 10.50 for so many years, and it's fluctuated, trying to go back up to 13.25. Most recently, the incumbent introduced a bill last year. I actually wish that the incumbent had introduced this bill 9 years ago. When President Obama was president, he's a Democrat, she's a Democrat as well. That had been a perfect opportunity for her to introduce that bill.
I became a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, which is the oldest and most exclusive committee in Congress, and is actually the committee that does tax writing. Because I was on that committee, I had the opportunity to put legislation in which was way outside of the ballpark of what had been done previously. That permanency actually did pass the House.
She said that it couldn't pass the Senate, which was the Republicans. What she's not telling the people of the Virgin Islands is that her behavior in Congress, she's constantly attacked the Republican Party. And she wonders why she can't get a bill passed.
Many pieces of legislation did not pass in the Republican-run Senate, and we are going to do it again.
All of this money is being brought down to the Virgin Islands. We have to follow the money to make sure it goes where it's supposed to go. And that's something you guarantee that Picard will do.
The job, however, of a member of Congress is not, in fact, to be that oversight person over money once it comes.
In my role as the new delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives, or delegate to Congress, I would add that as a requirement that once we get the monies, that I am able to come down once a month or have people on the ground to where the monies get applied correctly.
Now, Fancy, I want to go to you, and I want to, get your input on that clip that we just saw, and to Janika's point as well, too. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, forums, debates don't win elections. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a strategy and you don't have the resources to be able to compete with those who have the resources, you don't have a strategic plan, then it's very difficult for you to have the repetition and have a consistency in appealing to that voter base. So now talking about this particular scenario, Stacey Plaskett association with Jeffrey Epstein, and how has it affected her support base? How has it eroded the base? Picture this. Over 12,000 votes, average, she's getting per election. Let's take 50% away from her. That lands around 6,000, 5,000 votes. The question is, can both candidates tap into a pool and exceed that percentage? They can't. The votes are going to be split between the two candidates. And because of the lack of messaging, consistency, and the appropriate resources to execute an effective campaign, it's difficult to beat her.
Yeah. One of the candidates actually has had some issues this campaign season. Challenger Ida Smith, has faced some challenges with the election system, including being disqualified by Supervisor Carolyn Fox and then later reinstated by the Board of Elections on the advice of the Attorney General. Janika, I want to ask you, how do you think these challenges affected Smith's campaign?
That's a difficult question to answer, because to be quite honest, I don't think it was the strongest campaign to begin with. So, having these challenges, I mean, she's on the ballot today. I don't know whether, the eventual outcome of the court matter is going to mean anything for this race, but it is exactly, I think, as Fonzie said, that it's neither here nor there at the end of the day, because I don't think that she has the momentum that would be necessary to unseat a candidate like Plaskett, even if she didn't have those challenges with the board or the supervisor of elections.
Raven, I want to go to you. Smith is from St. John. You talked about presence. We talked about, campaigns and everything like that. What were you seeing from Smith? Did you see anything to think that this, controversy would affect her campaign in any way?
I think that I'm in agreement with Janika here that honestly, it wasn't a super strong campaign. Building on a point that I made earlier on having confidence in the candidate that they can perform the job that they are running for. I don't think that outside of Stacey, even despite the connections to Epstein and and the altercation that she had with that person, I don't think that either candidate really gave anybody the confidence that they could do the job better than Stacey. I will say that I have seen Ida's campaign, and I'll even commend some parts of the campaign. She kind of went under that People's Choice banner. Now, there's something to be said about the strength of the individual campaigns that made up the People's Choice, but I will at least say that I like the concept of having multiple people kind of campaigning together under similar ideas. Yeah, like a team campaign, and I think that's something that I would like to see more in the future. I just don't think that any of the people under that team campaign had a super strong campaign to begin with.
Fancy, I want to get your input on this discussion.
And here's the thing. Ida got free publicity. And I don't think she knew how to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
Because if they're writing articles and saying that they're trying to keep you off the ballot, then you have to get a message. You have to capitalize on that opportunity, because what they did is brought you some exposure that you could not have paid for. And I expected her to jump on that immediately. Even if you had to redirect who's responsible and say, blame the incumbent. Is the incumbent trying to get you off the ballot? It's about having a strategy and knowing how to a message with consistency. And I think she missed the opportunity.
That's interesting. I think Fox has actually been persistent in challenging Ida Smith's eligibility, even going as far as taking legal action against the board. Now, Jamila, I want to ask you, what do you think is motivating Fox?
Power. I think that it's people who have been given authority and power sometimes abuse that authority and power. And I think this is a clear example. Supervisor of Election Fox there were voters that raised questions about Angel Bolquez's residency, and she did not have this kind of fight and vigor in investigating Mr. Bolquez. Now, Mr. Bolquez did work at the Board of Elections or at this election system at one point, so they may have some sort of a relationship, but the energy that she is giving to remove this woman from the ballot makes it appear to a general voter like myself that there's something personal or something untoward occurring. And, Supervisor Fox is single-handedly undermining the integrity of our election system with the choices and her behavior. If there's a question about law and where your duties begin and where the board ends, wait until after the election has happened so that there's no question about whether or not the election is valid. And what Supervisor Fox is doing is harming, creating irreparable harm to our election system and to our democracy. And I just think that the board needs to take some serious action against her.
Fancy, I want to ask you want to get your input. What do you think? Are you in agreement with Jamila?
Well, based on my personal experiences with Fox, I don't think it was personal before. It may have gotten personal after, because she's standing her ground. And I think that in questioning her authority, and this particular person, the candidate Ida Smith, she may have felt that Ida Smith tried to overstep the authority that she have in terms of whether she would qualify her to be a qualified candidate to be on the ballot. And the objections, that of course came from Ida, the question becomes now whether or not Fox is taking direction from the Department of Justice and the legal minds, the legal opinions. Because now it becomes an issue as to whether or not we all know that the Constitution trumps local law.
It is interesting, though, when Fox disqualified Smith, she told her, appeal to the board. Smith, appeal to the board.
I followed instructions.
She followed the instructions. And the board asked the Attorney General for an opinion. The Attorney General gave his opinion. The board met once again. They voted to place Smith on the ballot. Fox said, you'll hear from me. And we have heard from her, and she subsequently filed a complaint 3 days after early voting had already started. Janika, I want to get your input and your thoughts on, these chain of events that have been that transpiring. You've been following it as well too. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, to me, the situation is a bit bizarre because, as you rightly put it, Ida Smith followed the instructions that were given. She appealed as was told to her. And so now we have Supervisor Fox basically staking out a position against the VIDOJ, really, and the Board of Elections. So you have the weight of legal opinion of the Virgin Islands saying that Miss Smith, Ida Smith, should be on the ballot, and you have Supervisor Fox standing alone to say no. I wanted to point out that right now the Attorney General is representing the Board of Elections in this lawsuit. So VIDOJ says, the board was right.
And interestingly enough, and you're hearing this from us here first, but Fox actually wrote to the Attorney General on October 21st, highlighting that Ida Smith listed an undeveloped piece of land as her registered address. Now, tell me, what do you make of this?
Well, It's very difficult to make a qualified or provide a qualified opinion. Why? Because we're saying that she identified a piece of land in St. John open space that is not undeveloped as the actual residence. And I can't tell you that it is in fact affirmative or it's not. For all we know, we're receiving information from, we don't even know if it's a reliable source that we got this information from. And sometimes I try to stay away from that in not being able to confirm beyond a reasonable doubt that this is the case.
Well, we have a copy of the letter. We have the copy of the
I'm
letter.
talking about the letter.
Yes.
I'm talking about the address she used in St. John.
Well, we have a copy of the letter, and we also have the documentation that Fox actually submitted as evidence, and it includes geomaps as well, too.
It does not include, however, a statement of her visiting physically the property.
Exactly.
So I think that, when did the satellite last pass over that parcel? When did that geomaps image, when was that taken? And so I think that is still an open question that we don't have a real solid answer to.
But again, it speaks to hubris. We have had voters, and let me just preface my comments by saying I work in an institution with Senator Bolquez. I like him as a human being, but we have had voters question the legitimacy of his candidacy based on his residence. And we have not seen this kind of investigation from Ms. Fox into voters' complaints. Actual voters made a complaint. A voter didn't complain candidate Smith. This is Ms. Fox, her ego, her hubris, her position, was saying to the Attorney General of the Virgin Islands, you have an opinion, but I think I know more than the person who represents the government of the Virgin Islands for which you work. And now the greater question is, I hope that the money that is being expended comes out of her pocket, because she works for the Board of Elections. And the Virgin Islands, these monies come from the taxpayers, and she is spending, I hope she's not spending taxpayer dollars to take this matter to court when our attorney has already said that the woman needs to be on the ballot.
Raven, you're on St. John. Maybe we might need you to go and investigate whether or not this part of land is in fact undeveloped. So I want to move on now to the race for the delegates to the 6th Constitutional Convention. With only 4 candidates running for the 7 available seats in the St. Thomas St. John district, the remaining 3 seats will be determined by write-in candidates. Raven, I want to ask you, what does that say to you?
It speaks to dwindling willingness to participate in the political process. I think that the race that I was most interested in seeing was the one for the 6th Constitutional Convention, because it holds so many really important implications for the future of the territory. But I don't think that enough of us are really informed enough on the issue for the progress that we need to be made. For the longest time, I have been researching the past constitutional conventions to try and get to an understanding of exactly what went wrong. And it seems like for many of them, a huge stumbling block has been public buy-in. It's consistently been this issue of not enough of us really participating, reading what's been written, voting on it, and things like that. I really hope that whoever gets in, that they have the funding necessary to go really hard in their public education around the matter.
Fancy, I want to ask you.
And I fully agree. I mean, historically speaking, if you go back to the previous Constitutional Convention, from the law to the election of members to a particular board, I think that they have failed to really provide an effective message to educate the public, first and foremost, and actually to convey to them, to disseminate information explaining why it's important to be a part of the Constitutional Convention. And if you look at past, there was a full complement. And I'm talking about by election. So something is obviously happening. And I think they failed to really put an effective message out there to explain to people why it's important to be a part of this.
Right, and to add to it a little bit, for the longest time, one of my prized possessions was like a little booklet, and it was an educational booklet. I believe it was made by Ms. Ruth Molinar.
I don't want to cut you off, but we have some results that are in. So for the delegate to the House of Representatives, bear with me, we just got them in. So for early voting, we have incumbent Stacey Plaskett with 2,675 votes. Right behind of her, we have Ida Smith with 382, maybe not necessarily right behind of her. And then we have Ronald Picard with 277 votes. We have a total of 24 write-in votes, and this is for the delegate for the House of Representatives. And now moving to the senator at large, we have Democratic Senator Angel Boquez Jr. with 2,001 votes, and this is early voting numbers. Independent Lorelei Marsh Monsanto with 712 votes and a total of 17 write-ins. And now for the legislature of the Virgin Islands. Our top vote getter right now for early voting is Kurt Viale with 2,301 in early voting. And following right behind of him is actually newcomer Clifford Joseph with 1,824. Now, these are early voting numbers. Novo Francis Jr. with 1,681 votes. Incumbent Senator Kenneth Kenny Gittins with 1,639 votes. We have independent Franklin Johnson with 1,580 votes. And rounding that out is going to be Maurice James with 1,481 votes. That is the top 7 vote getters. That was 6? That is only 6? Okay, so then we have Democratic Hubert Frederick with 1,480 votes, and this is early voting numbers. So unfortunately, Senator Diane Capehart and incumbent Senator Samuel Carrion do not make that top 7 for the early voting numbers. All right, now tell me, we see now here Clifford Joseph actually beating out incumbent current Senate President Novo Francis Jr. Jamila, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Clifford Joseph launched his campaign back in February. I saw him at the agriculture fair handing out pamphlets, and he has been in neighborhoods. I've seen him out and about, so he has been doing the traditional outreach type activities since February. And if these early voting numbers show us anything, is that, to Adla's point, the old stuff works.
Yes.
So he's been doing that. And what's interesting is that Senator Maurice James, who's been the target of targeted attacks in the early voting, is in the race. And I think some of those targeted attacks has helped her much to
garner that support.
Help to garner some support for her. All publicity is good publicity, and so it got her name out there. You're targeting this incumbent senator. People want to know why, and it got her name into circulation.
Well, interestingly enough, I know I'm here looking at some of these unofficial results from early voting, and while she may have had some issues this morning at Claudio Marco School, Mary Peggy Moorhead actually is leading the pack for the Board of Education in the St. Croix district with 1,428 votes here for early voting, and then followed by Emanuela Perez with 1,300 votes. Jamila, maybe the controversy.
Yeah, and let's call a spade a spade. Peggy Moorhead is a known name. She, she calls into every show. She emails. She has a email blast list out of this world. She could give she could do a Survey Monkey with her email list. She could do one of these scientific polling. Adla with her email list that she has going on there. So she's a well-known name, and so her numbers are to be expected, especially in the education field. So I'm not surprised by that.
You spoke about incumbent Senator Maurice James as well, too, and those targeted attacks. Janika, you saw some of those attacks as well, too. What are your thoughts? Do you think that those attacks helped her to garner that support and kind of get her over the edge? Because we did see she had some struggles in the primaries.
I think when you have these kinds of statements, it always what's the word I'm looking for? It always backfires, I think, on the person that's making them. And I think that Maurice James has had a decent 2 years in the Senate. She has authored, some legislation. She has participated, I think, and given a decent account of herself. I think people, a lot of times people are voting on how they feel about somebody, how they, how somebody is making them feel about the political process. And I think that people feel good about Senator James. So I don't think that those attacks would have, damaged her to a large extent, and I think they may have backfired.
And I think one of those persons who were actually criticizing Senator Maurice James was actually Jelani Ritta, who had publicized her for that work, that she did with the Williams Delight Home Ownership Initiative. And then Michael Springer then intensified that criticism by involving her children in various attacks. Now, we're talking about how it may have helped propelled her. I'm looking at these early voting numbers here, and Jelani Ritter is number 10, 11?
10.
Number 10. Number 10 here. So do you think that possibly...
No, 11.
11. Do you think that possibly could have hurt him?
Well, here's the thing. We have to look at the timeline. The early voting, we don't know if some of them votes were casted even before that exchange. Sure. You see? So the sentiment could have potentially, and you guys could share with me what the timeline.
It was after. So the attacks happened before early voting started. The attacks were continuous. It was before. It happened. If my memory serves me correctly, they did the announcement sometime back in August, right after the primary, right around the primary.
Yes.
And then the attacks intensified in September.
Yeah, because I was trying to determine whether or not it would be a contributing factor. If it happened actually on that timeline, I could see where the momentum or it could have jolted her campaign. Because now I think maybe the public may have looked at it, voters may have looked at it and looked at her as a victim.
There was one of the biggest criticisms that I saw was that these attacks kind of reeked of misogyny as well too. Raven, I want to get your input on your thoughts on whether or not you think that this may have hurt both Ritter and Springer, because Springer was running for a seat for the Constitutional Convention, and out of those top 7, he's number 8. Do you think that possibly could have hurt his chances?
Honestly, I think it did. I think that something that's kind of being left out of the conversation here is that Jelani Ritter also has a bit of a controversial reputation himself. Yes, he does definitely have a following, but he has a history of kind of sharing information that has not been verified. He is known to kind of jump into arguments and conversations not fully articulating himself well, or not taking the time to really understand the situation, to say the least. So I think that in and of it, having that reputation is gonna kind of draw on his campaign a little bit. And I think that moment with Maurice James is kind of reflective of a wider issue.
And that's so interesting that somebody in her age bracket, which is probably in Jelani's age bracket, or you may be slightly younger than him, you have that opinion of him, because so many people, like older people, felt like because he had a Facebook presence that would help his campaign. And you're saying that some in your age group thought that his presence on Facebook was not something that was completely positive, and it weighted in the negative pool, so to speak.
Yeah, that's why I say that social media, at the end of the day, it is a tool. It really comes down to how you use it. Do you use it effectively? Do you use it ethically? And I think that Jelani has a history of not using it effectively and not using it ethically.
Incumbent Senator Sam Carry-Young, he came out number 9 here in these early voting numbers that we're seeing. He also faced some challenges. He was recently sued over unpaid rent for his bar in Frederiksted. Do you think that may have had any effect, Janika?
Yeah, I think that I think it could have definitely had an effect. I think people expect certain things from their lawmakers, their legislators, and I think that having these kinds of financial issues coming out kind of right before that election cycle really kicks in could have actually, soured some people, caused some people to question, especially because, the legislature is the holder of the purse strings, and whether it is fair or not, I think that he perhaps could have done a little bit more work in explaining himself in terms of deflecting some of the negative PR that was coming out. He kind of left it alone to, I don't know, maybe hopefully, die down or quiet down. But again, I go back to my contention that a lot of times it's about how you feel about people and how people make you feel rather than specific policies and so on. And I think that it could have led some people to, kind of look askance at whether this person, without knowing the full details of how it happened and why there was such a big arrearage, people might have said, wow, is this guy really going to be good with all of the duties that he's entrusted with in the legislature? So it could have.
I don't think that I don't think that his financial troubles played a part in it. This is his second term. In his first term, he served in the majority, and as such, he had the chairmanship of a committee. He had presence in people seeing him all the time, sitting in a leadership position. You looked pronounced as a leader. You had that visual consistently. He benefited from being aligned with the Democrats in the 34th legislature. In this 35th legislature, he's part of the minority, and the minority senators speaks first. I think he is the fourth senator to speak during session, and sometimes you just don't hear them because they speak so early in session, and I don't think that he has the presence on the Senate floor that he had when he benefited from being associated with the Democrats. There were talks that he was going to switch to become a Democrat. He didn't do that, and as such, he's a minority senator, and he hasn't had a piece of legislation that he could hang his hat on, so to speak. And I think that has hurt him somewhat in this election cycle.
Well,
I want to go over, before we go, I want to go over these early voting numbers in the St. Croix district once again. For the delegate to the House of Representatives, we have incumbent Stacey Plaskett with 2,675 votes, Ida Smith with 382, and Ronald Picard with 277. Now, moving to the senator at large for the legislature of the Virgin Islands, we have incumbent Senator Angel Bolquez Jr. with 2,001 votes, and Lorelei Marsh Monsanto with 712. These are the early voting numbers. And now for the legislature, again, St. Croix, top vote getter, former Senator Kurt Viale with 2,301, Clifford Joseph, 1,824, Novo Francis Jr. with 1,681, incumbent Senator Kenneth Gittins with 1,639, incumbent Senator Independent Franklin Johnson, 1,580 votes, Democratic Senator Maurice James, 1,481, Democratic newcomer Hubert Frederick, 1,480, and Democratic that will round out the top seven. Again, incumbent Senators Diane Capehart coming in 8th with 1,391 votes, and incumbent Senator Samuel Sang-Cameron with 1,229 as number 9 to round out these numbers.
Can I just point out that at least the early voting figures are showing that Senator Capehart's endorsement of the independent senators did not seem to help either her or them.
Wow.
But the endorsement came right, and I only know this because I know the event that was had.
I have the early voting numbers here for St. Thomas, for the St. Thomas St. John district. Now, for the early voting numbers in the St. Thomas St. John district, we still have Stacey Plaskett as number 1 with 2,103 votes. Ida Smith with 401 votes, and Republican Ronald Picard with 207 votes. Now, for the legislature for at-large, we have Democratic Senator Angel Bolquez Jr. with 1,457 votes, Lorelei Marsh Monsanto with 982 votes. Now, for the legislature for our senators, we have incumbent Senator Milton Potter as the top vote getter. These are the early voting numbers with 1,873 votes. Dwayne DeGraff with 1,662 votes. Incumbent Senator Alma Francis Heiliger with 1,601 votes. Newcomer Avery Lewis with 1,488 votes. Incumbent Senator Carla Joseph with 1,453 votes. Incumbent Senator Marvin Blyden with 1,451 votes. Somebody tell me where I am right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm at 6. So we have incumbent Senator Ray Fonseca rounding out that top 7 with 990 votes. All right, so and these are the early voting numbers, St. Thomas St. John District. Fancy, tell me, what are your thoughts on hearing these numbers?
Well, if you recall, I said a little earlier that you had one person who vacated a seat, and that seat was going to be filled. And I mentioned that Avery Lewis had the administration behind him with the endorsement. So those are solid numbers that he's bringing forward. And I felt that you have some newcomers there that could potentially break in to that top 7 in terms of a dark horse. I just don't know who it would be. With the early voting, we have to look and see if maybe some of the candidates, potential dark horse, was building a momentum going into the last stages of the campaign.
Raven, tell me what are your thoughts on hearing, for the representatives in the St. Thomas, St. John district?
I think that for sure those top three, I'm not surprised whatsoever.
I'm not surprised.
I think that the three of them have had kind of the strongest campaigns out of the St. Thomas, St. John district, honestly. I've been seeing them, not just on social media, of course, although, yes, they kind of did indeed have a social media presence.
Yes, they did.
But I did also see them present in person. I did see them campaigning, not the whole fish fry, I don't think, but I know that they were present at forums. There were a number of events that Fish Fry held that
One person that I did see actually doing door-to-door was actually Avery Lewis.
Yes.
He was going door-to-door. I want to give the numbers now for the St. Thomas, St. John. With the Board of Education, we have Dr. Kaiser Callwood with 1,599 and Attorney Nandi Siku with 1,371. For the Board of Elections, we have Democrat Lawrence Busholti with 1,353 votes, Democrat Shanil Callwood with 1,221, and Republican Barbara Laron with 776. So that rounds that out for the St. Thomas, St. John early voting. All right. I want to ask, when we were talking about campaigning, we heard that Avery Lewis was going door to door. Is that something that you guys want to see come back, going door to door? We saw, even nationally, we saw Vice President Kamala Harris knocking on people's doors as well, too. Jamila, tell me what your thoughts.
I think it's important. I think that voters, you have to reach the voters where they are. And I think that you have to, I'm an advocate for meeting people on their level. And so I like the idea of going out and speaking to people. I like having candidates ask me for my vote. I like having the engagement, and I think just like I like it, so do others. But these early voting numbers, if you don't mind, it tells me that we have more registered Democrats in our territory than any other party. But the fact that Dwayne DeGraff and Alma Francis Heiliger, they're running second and third in the early voting, tells me that the Democratic Party is losing their stronghold. Typically, those individuals, while they continue to place, especially DeGraff, this will be Senator Alma Francis Heiliger's third term if she's elected. She was lower down on the ballot, but they have springboard up into the top three in the early voting. Tells me that the Democratic Party has work to do if they want to regain the stronghold of power that they had. And that's just something that I see here as happening.
I can hear that. I want to get your take on that, Fancy. Hearing that these independents, they're moving up. What are your thoughts?
I think voters are actually shifting their focus and attention. Voters are trying to identify with candidates. The Democratic Party has gone through a polarization just by association, and I think right now they're looking for candidates that can appeal to them, candidates that they can relate to, candidates that have an effective message that deal with the bread and butter issues that they're confronted with. And I don't think it's along the party lines that people are really voting now.
We did see some changes. I'm sorry, Raven. We did see some changes recently with, Democratic State Chair Stedman Hodge, who recently stepped down, saying he wanted to concentrate on his campaign for delegates to the 6th Constitutional Convention. We've seen changes with that leadership. Carol Burke now, as the state chair for the Democratic Party. Does those changes, kind of affect what we're seeing? To your point that you were about to make, Raven, also with those changes and kind of garnering that support for the Democratic Party as the largest party registered voters?
I think that earlier we kind of touched on the impact that being mixed up in the Epstein scandal, the impact that had on Stacey Plaskett. I think that it's had a wider impact on the Democratic Party as a whole, rather on any one of them as an individual. honestly.
Yeah.
I think that has really eroded a lot of trust in the Democratic Party and has led to quite a bit of apathy about the party system as a whole in the territory.
Differently though, in the St. Croix district, when we look here at the early voting numbers, there was only one independent senator who made up that top 7, and that's Franklin Johnson. So are we saying that the Democratic Party in St. Thomas is a little shaky versus here on St.
It's a little
Croix?
different.
It's different. It's clearly different. Very much so. And so I think that it's clear that there's some rebuilding that has to happen in that district where people have lost trust in the Democratic Party, so to speak, in that district.
And Raven, I kind of want to go back because we keep talking about this social media presence, and I think we have Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, an independent, who definitely utilized social media, because I feel like every time I was scrolling on Facebook, her videos were popping up as well too. Do you think that kind of voter apathy with maybe the Democratic Party as well too, and then utilizing that, do you think that may have helped Alma Francis Heiliger this election? I mean, I know this is just early voting numbers. Do you think that contributed to where she ranked in the early voting numbers?
Honestly, I think so. I think that a lot of things kind of feed off of each other. I think that when there is a moment, when you're an independent and you can see a moment where the party system is starting, there's a lot of erosion in the trust of the party system. Kind of like Fonzie was touching on, you got to strategize. That's your moment to really present yourself as the alternative. If you don't trust this party and what they're doing, here I am. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I can do.
Yeah. Janika, the marketing experts, tell me, what does the Democratic Party need to do? How do they need to change their marketing to kind of, I guess, garner some more trust, some more, loyalty to the party?
That's a really good question. And I think that, I know you're looking at the slide on St. Thomas, but I want to get back to something that we discussed in the beginning of the program, which was Senator Capehart's endorsement of 2 independent candidates on St. Croix. Where is the party discipline? And maybe this could be contributing to that kind of weakening of a party identity and people looking to support various individual candidates rather than a party apparatus as a whole. So I know that the 2 islands are sometimes looked at separately, but maybe it just could be an overall weakening of the party structure, given that the Dems are not pulling together their people and really enforcing that we are going out as the slate. I think that maybe that's something that they could be looking at, whether they need to hang together in a stronger way.
And Raven actually brought that up when it came to the People's Choice and they having a few people that was kind of, as a team, campaigning as a team and running as a team. Do you think we need to see more teams working together?
Well, here's the thing. Historically speaking, this has happened from the beginning of times, where you have somebody crossing party lines and supporting whether it's an independent candidate, Republican. It all depends on the momentum that a candidate have, because no candidate wants to align themselves with someone that is on a sinking ship. So they try to align and position themselves where there could be a spill-off, where there could be a benefit.
But does
to
that
their
hurt
success.
the party as a whole?
And it does.
It does.
It does. But to a greater extent, if we're talking about party and party discipline, Kurt Viale, who's probably going to emerge as the number 1 vote getter in the St. Croix district, he left the party to challenge the titular head of the party and then rejoined the party and ran first in the primary and ran first and will probably run first in this general election. And when I had the opportunity to interview him, I asked him that and I made it very clear. There is no discipline. Had this been anywhere else in the United States, there would have been some sort of repercussions from the diehard party supporters.
Yes.
But in the St. Croix district in particular, we don't particularly hold the party banner to our chest, and we don't embrace it fully. And that is why he was able to leave the party and re-enter and maintain and sustain the support of Democrats.
You know, I want to ask, he was welcomed back into the fold. Nellie was not necessarily welcomed back into the fold. You know, we see her now running that write-in campaign, and it's just like that difference between the two candidates.
There wasn't a difference between the two candidates. The difference between the two candidates is, you know, to Adla's point earlier, former Senator Nellie Rivera O'Reilly had the position when she was serving. Oh, I'm not going to run. Oh, the people want me to run. I'm not running this time. I'm going to run again. And it was, oh, I'm doing it because the people begging. No, we're not begging you to represent us. And so I think she took the love that her supporters had for her for granted, and you know, she thought that she could you know that old song, you could walk back into my life. No, they were close the door. You can't come back. You know that the Survive song?
Yes.
The voters were already done with her at this point. And now with her 139 names, they're going to be further done with her. And they're going to be like, I'm so glad I took back the key and changed the locks on the door.
Okay, I want to go back over the early voting numbers once again for the St. Thomas St. John district. We have Democratic Senator Milton Potter, number 1, with 1,873 votes. Independent Dwayne DeGraff with 1,662. Alma Francis Heiliger, 1,601. Avery Lewis, 1,488. We have Carla Joseph, 1,453. Marvin Blyden, 1,451. And Democratic incumbent Senator Ray Fonseca with 990. And that closes out the early voting numbers for the St. Thomas St. John district. I want to go back over the numbers now for the St. Croix district early voting numbers. We have number 1, Kurt Viale, 2,301 votes. Democratic newcomer Clifford Joseph, 1,824. Novel Francis Jr., 1,681. Kenneth Kenny Gittins, 1,639. Independent Franklin D. Johnson, 1,580. Maurice James, 1,481. And Hubert Frederick, 1,480. Now, we're seeing these numbers. These are the early voting numbers that we are seeing coming in. You know, we also have seen, interestingly enough, we're seeing some numbers that have also come in as well too for the 6th Constitutional Convention. And for the top 7 vote getters in the 6th Constitutional Convention, I do want to give those numbers out for the St. Croix district. We have Usi Raymond Richards, number 1 with 1,575 votes. John Abramson Jr., 1,258 votes. Rupert Ross Jr. with 1,198 votes. Devin Carrington with 1,196 votes. Liliana Bellardo de O'Neill with 1,134 votes. Ronald Russell with 1,040 votes. And John Canegada with 860 votes. Now, we spoke about Michael Springer. Just want to give his numbers. He came in number 8 with 756 votes. You know, interestingly enough, I want to ask, you know, we have the 6th Constitutional Convention is something that is critically important here to the Virgin Islands. And I want to get your input on that, Jamila. You're very excited about it. Tell me, what are your thoughts?
No, I'm sorry. These numbers are as expected in the St. Thomas, in the St. Croix district. All of these people have strong name recognition. I think that Usi Raymond Richards actually campaigned. He was out campaigning and he was asking people to vote for him. But most of these candidates have relied on name recognition just to be able to
get it.
it.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but if you look at all of these names, they're all seniors.
Jamila, I want to get to our unofficial results now for the St. Croix district. We have a total ballot cast of 8,172 people that have cast ballots, and the voter turnout representing 55.13% of the voter total registered voters. For delegate to the House of Representatives, we have Stacey Plaskett with 5,419 votes, Ida Smith 1,011 votes, and Ronald Picard with 730 votes. For legislature, for the at-large senator, we have Democratic Senator Angel Bolquez Jr. with 3,988 votes, Lorelei Marsh Monsanto with 1,691 votes. Now, for the legislature of the Virgin Islands, Senator Kurt Viale remained at number 1 with 4,825 votes. Clifford Joseph, number 2, being welcomed into the legislature with 3,771 votes. Novo Francis Jr. with 3,410 votes. Incumbent Senator Kenneth Kenny Gittins, 3,354 votes. Independent Franklin D. Johnson with 3,280 votes. We have Hubert Frederick, who has bumped up now to 3,201 votes. And Maurice James with 3,071 votes. Am I at 7?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you are.
I am at 7. So unfortunately, right now, we have incumbent Senator Diane T. Capehart at number 8 with 2,857 votes, and independent Senator incumbent Samuel Sam Carrion with 2,779 votes. Do these now, while they may be unofficial, do these numbers now surprise you?
No, they do not. I think these are the candidates. I think we expected Senator Viale to take the seat that Senator James vacated. Mm-hmm. We knew that Clifford Joseph, based on his run in the primary, that he was almost guaranteed a seat. We just didn't know which incumbent senator would be displaced. And then most people counted both the female senators out. I kept telling people they were going to be mistaken, and they were. Mm-hmm. Senator Maurice James retains her seat. Senator Capehart has lost hers, as well as the Senator Carrion and Hubert Frederick, who has been actively campaigning as well, doing door-to-door. He's been able to secure a seat in the 36.
And again, these are the unofficial numbers for all of the voting centers here in the St. Croix district. I want to go over them again. For senators, we have Kurt Viale with 4,825, Clifford Joseph 3,771, Novo Francis Jr. with 3,410, Kenneth Kenny Gittins with 3,354, Independent incumbent Franklin D. Johnson with 3,280 votes. Freshman and newcomer Hubert Fredericks with 3,201 votes. Incumbent Senator Maurice James, who is going to retain her seat, with 3,071 votes. Okay. Wow. Fonzie, what is it like as a senator, kind of, as a candidate, waiting for those numbers to come in?
I don't think you have to guess. You get nervous. But I wanna comment on something real quick before I lose that thought.
Yes.
Samuel Carrion.
Yeah.
I don't think people really necessarily expected him to fall out of the top 7. But sometimes in campaign you have to pay attention because they're contributing factors. For example, sometimes there's a high expectation when you win and you get into office. And you got to pay close attention to those expectations. For example, if you have campaign workers in particular, and some get disgruntled because they feel that you should have hired them, especially among a certain demographic, you got to be careful. You got to pay attention to these things because it's a contributing factor. Because what normally happens is that disgruntled person would go there and start to talk to family members and other folks, so it becomes a contributing factor. And if you don't pay attention to it and find a way to offset it, it could be the very one thing, because remember, every vote counts.
Every vote,
vote counts.
Every vote most definitely does count. Jamila, are you surprised to see that Carrion is not going to be back into the legislature?
Well, I happen to like Senator Carrion personally, and I know him personally as well. But I am a little bit surprised. I knew that, the pulse of the people, that there were some incumbents that would be in trouble. And, his name was one of the few that was circulating. And so I think that maybe he didn't launch his campaign in time. I know that he's had some challenges as well. And, his campaign this go around wasn't as visible as his previous campaigns. And when people don't see you, they think you're not interested in wanting the job. I must say that after the primary election, because people are saying Senator James was silent, I can say that after the primary election, Senator James increased her presence. You couldn't get on Facebook and on social media. You saw her ads on social media. You saw her in the traditional places. On the radio, you heard her on the radio. Up to today, you heard her on the radio. You saw her out in the street. So she recognized that she was being targeted, and she launched an offensive. And I think that it paid off. And she was one of those that was able to gain the seats. And there's a difference of 214 votes between the 7th and 8th place. That would mean that, somebody would have to get 215, in excess of the 214 that's cast for them, which is, if you double that number, it'll be 429 votes needed to move her, and I don't see that happening.
Well,
So
we have 333 absentee ballots that went out on St. Croix, so
chances are these numbers won't change.
Yeah.
Chances are.
Janika, you have a point that you want to make here?
No. We don't have the results for it.
Pass them down.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My apologies. Here you go.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I'm very I'm surprised by how much votes former Senator Oakland Benta got, because I wasn't expecting that he would, get over the 2,000 mark, and he did.
We actually have Kurt Viale here on the line with us, so I want to pick up. Mr. Viale, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good evening.
Good evening, and congratulations, becoming the top vote getter. Tell me, what are your feelings? What do you have to say to the people of St. Croix this evening?
Thank you for the interview. Well, I got to say that I feel very humble by all the individuals of St. Croix that went out and cast a vote for me. My team launched a very, very good campaign. We were out in the community. I have literally never stopped campaigning. I did not disappear. I was consistently on the radio and in the community. And today, the people of St. Croix really rewarded me with some 4,000 plus votes. I'm very, very humbled, and I really just wanted to say a big shout out to my campaign team. And I'm here right now with about 75 to 100 of them, and we're just celebrating this big win.
All right.
Congratulations to the people for putting me back in the seat, and a big congratulations to my team and all the individuals that made this happen.
All right. And Jamila, you have a question there for Senator Viale?
Senator Viale, how are you? Congratulations.
How are you doing? Thank you.
I am well. As coming back in, let me just ask the question that needs to be asked, because I work in the institution. Has calls been made previously, prior? Are there any discussions currently being had about the formation of the 36th legislature? Have there been any dates set when you're going to be meeting? And do you have any committees that you're interested in wanting to chair in the 36th legislature?
Jamila, having so much experience within the body, you know that I am no way going to tell you in reference to formation or committees. That's a discussion that's going to take place later this week. But as of now, I can't really announce that I am seeking a particular committee. It's going to be a collaborative meeting, and then we'll make the decisions as to who is the best to lead a particular committee and who's the best to lead the institution. But I do know that the legislature needs to organize from a position of strength, not a position of weakness, and we have to make sure that individuals are placed in committees where they have total understanding and will be willing to make sure that government remains transparent, that we're addressing the outstanding quality of life issues on St. Croix, and that we're going to move the territory forward. We have a tremendous amount of federal funds, some $15 billion, and I want to make sure that we don't send back one dime of those monies and that we're able to transform the Virgin Islands infrastructure, healthcare, education, because this is the first time in probably 30 or 40 years where we have this type of access to money. So the work begins, and I want to send the challenge out to all of those who are elected tonight that it's not about power, it's not about unnecessary formation, but it's about making sure that the legislature is an entity that works and that the laws of the land are enforced and followed on a regular basis. So I'm looking forward to hit the ground running.
All right, Mr. Vele, before we go, I know Ms. Simon, Janika has a question there for you.
Okay, no problem.
Well, incoming Senator Vele, former Senator, incoming Senator Vele, congratulations on your victory tonight. I'm going to try to be sneaky and do a little two-parter. What I wanted to know from you is, first of all, do you feel like an incumbent? You are the top vote getter this evening, despite your having spent 2 years out of the legislature. But do you feel that you had that name recognition and incumbency advantage that allowed you to capture the most votes this evening? That's my first question. And the second question I have for you is, what do you make of the fact that both you and the second place finishers were not in the legislature last term? Do you feel that this is, reflective of the public's opinion on the performance of the 35th?
The question can go both ways. I think looking at the results, you only have two new individuals who have never served in the legislature in Avery Lewis and Clifford Joseph. All other individuals that were elected were, like myself, a past member of the legislature or presently holding a seat in the legislature. But I think that the people of the Virgin Islands, they seeking change, and they're hoping that those individuals that were elected are going to bring about that change. In reference to the first part of your question, I am a public educator. I spent some 29 years in the public school system. I am well known on St. Croix, but I'm well known because of my hard work. I'm well known because of my community involvement. So I always look at those two aspects and give thanks and make sure that I continue along the line that I'm going to continue to serve the people. There are a lot of people that run for office and have name recognition and are not necessarily successful. So a lot of this just has to do with hard work, a good campaign team, well-organized, well-oiled campaign machine that we have here at St. Croix, Team Vele. And they go out and they put the work in the neighborhood and the community on a regular basis to make sure that my name is out there. So I give all the thanks to my team. I give the thanks to my family. I have a very supportive wife and two children who give 100% to make sure that I am elected. So I think it's a successful recipe that I will continue to follow.
All right. Well, Mr. Vele, I want to thank you again for calling in, and once again, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
All righty. All right. So we definitely have a lot to look forward to. We have a returning senator. We have freshman senators that are coming in. And do you think that that's going to bring new life into the legislature for this next term?
Well, it possibly will. But what I can say to you is for those that understand the institution and understand how majorities are formed, you could look at the results and almost start to figure or narrowing it down to two potential Senate president in coming out of the St. Thomas district, which will be Milton Potter or Marvin Blyden.
I
You
think-
could disagree with me if I'm wrong.
No, I agree that
Yeah.
those two would be the
logical choice.
The logical
Yeah.
choices, and I think that Senator Blyden needed to demonstrate strength in his district if he wanted to gain the presidency, because he would be with the, would be the most senior senator in that district going in. However, he didn't do so well, and going in, if I was strategically advising Senator Potter, I would be like, I ran first. It's clear that my district wants me to lead the institution.
That has its leverage, but you know how this
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
You see, the thing to it is, it's going to boil down to who has the ability to organize, to in fact cash in on friendships, and have that kind of relationship with colleagues that and of course with the administration, that they feel would be the logical choice and the person that they feel they could work with. So there's going to be a lobbying coming from different quarters.
Yes. Now, I want to go back over the final numbers from all the precincts in the St. Croix district. Once again, these are the unofficial numbers. So we have Stacey Plaskett with 5,419 votes. Ida Smith with 1,011 votes. Ronald Picard with 730 votes. Now for the senator at large, we have our top vote getter with Democratic incumbent Senator Angel Bolkes Jr. with 3,988 votes. Lorelei Marsh Monsanto with 1,691 votes. The top 7 vote getters for the Senate is Kurt Viale at number 1 with 4,825 votes. Clifford Joseph with 3,771 votes. Incumbent Senator Novo Francis Jr. with 3,410 votes. Kenneth Gittins with 3,354 votes. Independent incumbent Senator Franklin Johnson with 3,280 votes. And Hubert Frederick with 3,201 votes. And rounding that out is incumbent Democratic Senator Maurice James with 3,071 votes. Now, I also want to go to our Board of Education numbers that we see here. We have independent Mary Peggy Moorhead with 2,882 votes. Democratic, she's actually an incumbent. She's serving on the board, Emanuela Perez, with 2,680 votes. For the Board of Elections on St. Croix, we have Republican Liliana Bollardo de O'Neill with 2,809 votes. Democrat C. Jason John Baptiste with 2,057 votes. Michael Joseph with 1,991 votes, and Cleopatra Peter with 1,717 votes. And for the 6th Constitutional Convention at large, we have Alicia Wells with 1,974 votes. And that rounds these numbers out for the St. Croix district. For the 6th Constitutional Convention, we have Usi Raymond Richards with 2,950 votes. Devin Carrington with 2,423 votes. Liliana Bollardo de O'Neill with 2,325 votes. John Abramson Jr. with 2,302 votes. Rupert Ross with 2,160 votes. Ronald Russell with 2,067 votes, and John Canegata with 1,763 votes. Now, Jamila.
Yes.
We have some new blood in the legislature. Do you think that this new term, having some new senators in, do you think that that's going to kind of help with the voter apathy to kind of increase the voter turnout? I think that that's something that, we've been struggling with here in the territory.
It depends on how fast they learn the ropes of the legislature. Everybody's learning curve is different. And I think that a lot of times we have new senators who come in and they don't necessarily have a seasoned staff to be able to help them navigate the halls of the legislature, so to speak. And so for a very long time, they can't find their footing, they can't find their place, they can't find their niche. And so that will all depend on how quickly
they learn those ropes.
They learn the ropes, and they're able to get their footing.
Well, we have one of those freshman senators who we hope are going to quickly learn the ropes online. One, we have Clifford Joseph with us. Mr. Joseph, congratulations to you.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell me, how are you feeling right now? You're getting ready to step into this new chapter. What are your thoughts to your people? What are your words to the people of St. Croix?
My words?
What do you have to say to the people of St. Croix this evening?
No, repeat your question. I didn't hear what you said.
He can't hear you.
I'm saying, what are your words to the people of St. Croix tonight coming in as number 2, and to round out the top 7?
Well, humble. I remain humble from the primary. I went ahead and started working the next day. The primary came in. I didn't take a lot of time to stay enjoying, knowing that work was ahead. And me and my committee went out there. My committee and I went out and we continued working. And we got the win.
All right. And Fancy, you had a question here from Mr.
Yeah. First of all, congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
The question that I would have for you is there any area of special interest for you? Because, everyone comes in with a forte or a particular area they're interested in. Is there any particular committee that you wanted to chair that you feel that you can be impactful?
Well, to be honest, I am here. I'm committed to serve. So after meeting with my colleagues, it will decide where I land, and I'm ready to serve. That's my position. My position is I know I could help, I could contribute to where we are and trying to get us forward. So after meeting with the colleagues, I'll be just fine to settle in and get ready to work.
Any advice as a former senator to a new freshman senator?
I guess one of the point that I wanted to get to, most candidates have a platform. And sometimes constituents are becoming very, very educated voters now. I'm talking about educated voters in this modern day. And sometimes people have a tendency of saying that they want to see what percentage of your platform you're going to be able to accomplish. And that's why I was asking a question if there was any particular area of interest that you had. It might be you come with a financial background or you come with a certain discipline and you wanted to be thrusted into that respective role to be effective.
All right.
Again, my background is from the fire service, so if it was just based on my background, like I said, within the fire service, especially managing, a lot of your focus is on resources, and I think we are at a pivotal time here in the Northern Ireland, and every resource needs to be used, and I don't think that we're reaching out to each and every resource that we have to balance out some of the issues that every Northern Ireland is feeling a pinch from. I feel that looking at where we at and when you look at the situation of WAPA, that's not really a senatorial factor per se, but I'm clear that we do need to sit down and really look at what we're doing, because if we don't try and fix a reliable system in place, the problem is you're not going to have any more investors wanting to come here. So it's either we're going to just stay really reliant on that tourist attraction and past that, move above. Locally, when we start to talk about how resilient we are, we break in because the cost to live here and the salaries that we make, it doesn't match. So we have to do something to lower that cost for sure in order to start to build this economy, any economy here in the Northern Ireland, whichever one island. But I'm just saying, throughout the whole Northern Ireland, we have the same. We have that big elephant in the room that's sucking up heavy oxygen, and all of us are starting to stifle.
Well, we're definitely going to be looking to see what comes out of your office. Again, congratulations, incoming Senator Clifford Joseph.
Okay, thank you, and have a good night.
Have a good evening. All right, so we have Senator Maurice James on the line. Senator James, congratulations on being welcomed back into the 36th legislature. Tell me, what are your words for the people of St. Croix here this evening?
Good evening. I first of all want to thank God from whom all good things flow. Good things. I want to thank the people who went out to vote. I think St. Croix came out in full force. I want to thank those who voted for me, those who contributed to my campaign. I did not have deep checks like everybody else. I started out this campaign with $214 in my account. I want to thank my amazing, small but mighty team who worked the polls for me today. And I just want to say to the people of St. Croix that I'm a hard worker. I've shown that in the 2 years that I've been in. And I intend to work hard for them for the next 2 years.
All right. So Janika has a question here for you. Go ahead, Janika.
Hi, Senator James. Congratulations on your re-election. I wanted to ask you if you were intending to revisit the bill that you have been attempting to pass that would allow government employees to seek public office without taking leave. I know that you tried to introduce that legislation. I believe it was twice in the 35th,
yes.
and it was not supported by your colleagues. Do you feel that there is movement that could happen, especially with a new freshman senator coming in, that may give you some traction on that legislation? Is that something you want to revisit?
Well, I'm definitely going to push for it as many times as I can. If you look at the makeup of the Senate, and I keep saying this to people, most of the people who are in the Senate, they may not like me for saying this, but there are retirees from government. And it's by them not supporting opening up democracy to young people who can bring fresh perspectives to the Senate, all it does is it continues and perpetuates this practice of people staying in government for 30 years, retiring, and then using the Senate as an opportunity for something. I don't know what something, but
passive income.
That's what they do. Some people are very effective when they retire, and I've worked with senators who in this legislature. And worked well, and I'll mention her, Senator Donna Fred Gregory. She was somebody who pushed very, very great pieces of legislation. I know she's a retiree also, but when you come, and also Senator Nobel Francis was another person that also was you retire, okay, it's now your opportunity when you're in the Senate to make a change for the people, but young people need to come into the Senate. Young people who have education. I thought it was interesting that Senator Javan James is now saying that he's going for education, and I admire that. That's a great thing that he's doing, going to get an education. But we have a lot of people, young people, who are highly educated, highly experienced, highly skilled, and we're foreclosing that opportunity from them, and I want to open the gates for them. I just feel that that's just what we should do. I mean, maybe I'm different. Yeah, I know I'm different, actually. So, yes, I want to.
But not only does it prevent young people from serving in the Senate, it prevents people from running for the Constitutional Convention. I was very interested in serving on the 6th Constitutional Convention, and because of how the law was written, I would have to take leave from my job, which I clearly couldn't do.
Well, Senator James, I want to thank you once again for calling in and for joining us. Again, congratulations to you, and we look forward to seeing what's coming out from your office once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks to everyone, and congratulations to all who participated, and congratulations to the people that I'm looking forward to working with in the 36th legislature. Thank you all.
All right. So we have incumbent Senator Kenneth Gittins on line 2. And Senator Gittins, good evening, and congratulations.
Hi, good evening.
Congratulations. Senator Gittins, tell me, what are your thoughts on, the numbers that have come in this evening, being welcomed back into the legislature to serve another term in the 36th legislature?
Thank you. I'm truly excited. And I first want to thank God for, through him, all things are possible. And I want to also extend my heartfelt thanks to everyone who placed their trust in me to serve in the 36th legislature. Your vote and your prayers of confidence is both humbling and inspiring. And I'm committed to, working tirelessly on behalf of our territory, and particularly St. Croix. I also want to acknowledge and thank all those who offered themselves for service, because, running for office is never, ever an easy task, and I just deeply want to, say thank you again, and I respect their dedication as well. We have much work ahead of us, and I look forward to working and collaborating with my colleagues in the 36th to address, the challenges that we have before us as a territory, and again, in particular, St. Croix, and move our territory forward. I believe strongly that if we work together, we can achieve meaningful progress for everyone here in the territory. So again, I look forward to the 36th legislature.
All right, Senator Gittins, as one of the most senior members going into the 36th legislature, I think you and Senator Francis have the same amount of terms, but you were out for one term. Have you thought about, and I asked this already, I'll ask it of you as well, have you begun discussions, have you been thinking about the formation of the 36, and where do you see yourself landing in the 36 in the leadership role, or which chairmanship of which committee?
Well, I'm not sure what role I will take, but definitely we will have a conversation. And you know that those conversations will begin like as soon as tonight. But I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues. I'm not sure exactly where I'll be, but one thing I know is that I'm going to work my butt off again, and I really, really want to see things moving here on the island of St. Croix.
Right.
So whatever we sit and we decide, then we'll move forward.
All right, thank you.
Senator Gittins, good evening. Congratulations to you, sir. My question for you is, what do you have in store for WAPA in the 36th? I know you have been, at their heels trying to get legislation passed, some successful, some not so much. So what are you looking to, pass or do legislatively, or, when it comes to WAPA?
I believe we can work with WAPA, We just need to clean up what was left behind. The waste, fraud, and abuse that we've been seeing and whatnot must be cleaned up. It's almost like the same thing with the police department, with the abuse of overtime and whatnot. And it's never enough time to have this discussion.
Yes.
Because when I even brought up the matter of the abuse of overtime, I was actually accused by officers that I am cutting their overtime. No, I'm not cutting the overtime. I'm simply calling out what the abuse was. Mm-hmm. And we know that the officers were required to be doing overtime. But not getting off of the WAPA issue, I'm just simply saying that in all these problems that we have, if we could just clean up the waste, fraud, and abuse, we will be in a much better place. And one thing I'm hoping to move forward is that Commission on Ethics and Conflict of Interest, so that we can move things forward.
All right. Well, we'll definitely be looking forward to see if that comes out in the 36th legislature. Again, congratulations, Senator Gittins. And, and thank you again for calling in.
And again, I really I want St. Croix to know how much I appreciate them. Those who voted for me, those who even didn't go out and vote, I still represent the people of St. Croix, the people of the Virgin Islands, and I'm looking forward to doing that wholeheartedly.
All right.
And I want to thank everyone and thank the Most High for giving me the strength and whatnot. As you know, I've had some health challenges after the COVID, and again, to God be the glory. I'm still here and will fight for the people of this territory.
All right. All right. Have a good night. And we have so the phone lines are full. Let's go to line 1. Good evening, incumbent Senator Novo Francis. Congratulations. Thank you again for calling in.
Thank you very much, and good evening to your panel. Certainly, I'm truly humbled by the re-election this evening, and so I wanted to call in and I'm ready to give thanks and extend my gratitude and appreciation to the people of St. Croix.
All right, Ms. Fancy, you had a.
Well, former Senator Donna Storr. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
I wanted to congratulate 3 of you one time because I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate Senator Kurt Viale on a tremendous showing, being re-elected to office. It reminds me of my 2008 campaign, where I actually returned after running for governor. And I wanted to congratulate just each and every one of them. Senator Gittins, I know that you recently experienced, or you had a victory as it relates to the composition of the WAPA board. And I know that you have a special interest in that area. Would there be an interest on your part to chair the Committee on Government Operation to continue the work that you have been doing?
This is Senator Francis on the line.
This is Francis.
First of all, this is Senator Francis.
Oh, Senator Francis.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Senator
Thank you
Gittins.
for acknowledging that, in fact, the Supreme Court ruled in the favor of the legislature.
Yes, correct.
In that ruling.
So after now that you were Senate President, what would be your focus? What particular area within the legislature? And I'm not asking about the formation of a majority, because I can sit here and look at the results and almost see exactly how it's going to shape up.
Certainly, I want to continue to diversify our economy, and whatever role, obviously there'll be an opportunity for us to dialogue as a caucus and determine the positions or chairmanship moving forward. But I think it's so critical that we continue to address the issue of our economy and diversification of our economy, address the issue of disaster recovery, and being able to ensure that we're getting our infrastructure in place. So I truly believe that is my focus going into the 36th legislature.
All right. Well, again, Senator Francis, I want to thank you again for calling in, and congratulations. We're definitely going to be looking forward to see what comes out of the office.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. I want to take this quickly just to say thank you to my constituency, as well as my campaign team, a very small and mighty campaign team that year in, year out, go out there and put in the hard work to make sure that we're re-elected. And of course, this is my 6th term, so I truly appreciate the work that they have put forth in my re-election.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, and good evening to the panel.
All right.
Good night.
Nice.
All right, so we have another senator here on the line. I think we have Franklin Johnson on line 3. Good evening, Senator Johnson. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Good evening.
Good evening. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I first would like to start thanking the Almighty. Without him, none of this is possible. Secondly, I'd like to thank my team. And I'm here with a big team where King, meet Prince in Christian said, with my big guy, Chuck Knight, and my entire team out here. A very small team, but a lot of very strong, loyal supporters who stood by my side. Sometimes I could be a difficult person, but it's all about doing what needs to be done to represent the people of the big island of St. Croix. So with that, I just say thanks and praise, and thanks to the people of the island for giving me this opportunity to represent them for the 3rd time. They say you could win the 1st time, do it at the 2nd, and the people have supported me very strong, and they came back out again. And for that, I'm very thankful and grateful. And this is a humbling experience for me, someplace that sometimes you might never think you would have been. But I also have a great staff. that, you know, really pushes me and always get me out there as much as I can and just be visible to the people and always touch the people.
Raven?
Yeah, well, former Senator Donna Storg here, Senator Johnson. I want to say congratulations to you on a good showing. I mean, when you look at the vote spread here on the paper, it could have gone several different ways in terms of the vote count because of the margins of victory between each and every one of you. It speaks volumes about the campaign that you ran, because I paid close attention to your campaign in particular, and I must commend you. And of course, you had the vote of confidence coming from a former governor as well as other political pundits that felt that you deserved to return to the Senate. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Raven, you had a question?
Yes. Hello. Good evening, Senator Franklin Johnson. I want to start off by congratulating you on a well-run campaign, but I would love you to hear you speak on what your focus will be for this next legislature.
You know, my focus can be on a lot of these projects that just been stalemate on the Big Island. We have too many projects sitting there. There's a lot of funding for these projects. I am so passionate about the Envision program where people still having blue roofs. Today we had some rain here on the Big Island. And these folks that are in this program that just sitting, idling, waiting. We talk about the Barfield project. We talk about Mahogany Road. We talk a lot of big projects that some of them from 2015 with the Garvey Bond project, Garvey Bond Fund, are still nailing through the pipe. So I'm project oriented, and as Donna started, I got blessing from my good friend, Governor Kenneth Mapp. He was project-oriented, and I follow in that pattern because if we don't develop our infrastructure, then we can't invite nobody in. If we don't find ways to cut that electric cost of 45 cents a kilowatt, no one is coming to us. So I am going to be paying very close attention more to these projects, making sure that I stay on top of them and start asking my colleagues to bring in these agencies here and hold them accountable. I think we could have done a much better job in the 35th, and I sure hope that we do a better job in the 36th by calling in these agencies, holding people accountable. I sometimes could be a very aggressive person when I'm not getting my answers, but I'm not going to change who I am for nobody. And as long as the people put me to represent them, that's what I'm going to be looking out for at all times.
All right. Well, we hear that, and we're definitely going to be looking out to see more of that activism and, you know, what's coming out of your office. Again, congratulations, Senator Johnson.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say congratulations to all the winners and those who just took part in the process. Congratulations to them. I miss my good buddy, Brother Carrie Young, that I work with, and Senator Diane Capehart, that I work very close with. Hey, to God be the glory. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Good night to the people of the Virgin Islands.
All righty. Have a good evening. All right. So on the phone line, we have now. Okay. Unfortunately, we lost the call. So we had Hubert Frederick on the line, and unfortunately, the line is not picking up. So we are gonna see if we get Hubert Frederick here on the line, freshman senator. Good evening, Mr. Frederick.
Hi, good evening. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, this is going to be your first term here in the legislature. Tell me, what are some of your top priorities coming into the office?
Well, first off, let me just take a moment to give thanks and appreciation first to God, my family, my campaign manager, and all those wonderful supporters that I have out there. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, from the bottom of my heart. In terms of my priorities, I'm a financial auditor, a banker, a businessman, so I'd be comfortable in three capacities: finance, economic development, and as the former deputy commissioner of health and hospital. Those are three disciplines that I could comfortably work on.
All right. Jamila?
Well, he's not shy about putting it out there. Congratulations, Lorenzo, Mr. Frederick.
Thank you, Jamila. Thank you.
I'm glad that you tossed your hat into the ring a second go around. You ran before and you were unsuccessful, and you were successful this time. What do you think, or what changes did you make from 2022 so that you could be successful in 2024?
So I have this horrible habit of I don't accept losing or not being successful, and that's always been my approach in life. So I made sure I did everything 10 times better than I did the last time to ensure a victory. So I walked the streets from Frederickstead to Christiansted with my campaign group and knocked on doors, got chased by dogs and goats and horses. I did what it took. I met with a lot of groups. I put out information on a regular basis. So I did all the nitty-gritty things that people would overlook in a campaign in general, and just made sure I did that much more.
Well, congratulations.
All right. Any advice
Thank you so
to the
much.
freshman senator?
Senator Hubert Frederick.
This is the hardest job I've ever applied for in my life.
Senator Hubert Frederick, how does that sound to you?
I'm too tired to really speak, but I assume it sounds good.
Well, I just want, this is former Senator Adler Fonsi Danistorg. I just wanted to congratulate you. I've known you for so many years, and I know your first effort, and you know that's an inspiration for a lot of young people because it's about persistency. You know, sometimes if you fall down, get up and try again, and that's exactly what you did. So I'm sure that you're going to be an inspiration to a lot of young people around you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Senator.
All right,
if we have time, I just wanted to ask incoming senator, as a freshman coming in, what do you think would be the most challenging thing for you to get get used to, get accustomed to about being in the legislature?
So for me, just being called senator is going to be awkward for me because I've never been called that before. But the fact that now I have a staff that I could work with and start directing some of the initiatives that I'm excited to start working on, that's going to be a thrill for me, and I don't have to pay for it. So that's a big plus for me.
All right. Well, again, we want to congratulate you, Senator Hubert Frederick, and we definitely look forward to seeing what comes out of your office, and we wish you all of the best.
Thank you so much, guys, and appreciate the support and the love that you guys have shown throughout the years. Thanks.
All righty. All right. So, we heard from some these incoming senators. Tell me, what are your thoughts, Jamila? What do you hope to see? Maybe one of the first things that they address as a body.
Well,
so much.
There are some things, but I think one of the things that the institution as a whole has to really get a grip on and focus on is addressing the issue surrounding the Water and Power Authority. We do have some challenges with the Water and Power Authority, but then the next major issue that I think collectively, because the Spring Revenue Generating Conference and the Spring Financial Conference happens it should happen at the end of March, which would only give these new senators 2.5 months to get their feet wet, to understand the finances of the government. And we have a structural deficit in government. And the legislature as a whole, and this 36th legislature, the 35th just passed a very conservative budget. And, whoever emerges as members of the Committee on Budget, Appropriations, and Finance, they're going to have to continue to have these discussions. In the 35th, we started discussions with individuals where we have third-party consent decrees to make sure that we move the government out of these arrangements, because these entities, these third-party fiduciaries are taking monies from the government coffers that can be used elsewhere. And so millions of dollars, and it's like there's no end in sight. It's always, as you reach one goal, they create more. So it's like you're always jumping over a perpetual hurdle to get to the finish line, and the finish line never appears on the horizon. So whoever serving on the committee, isn't a must, but the institution as a whole will have to take a look at making sure that the oversight, the checks and balance to make sure that the executive branch is going out and being as aggressive as they can in realizing the revenue projections, that's happening. That is going to be a challenge. And then this 36th legislature will have, unfortunately, depending on the outcome on the national level, they're going to have to be able, I say we're like I still working in the legislature, right? But they're going to have to work towards making sure that the delegate to Congress is successful in ensuring that we get the increase in the RUM cover over monies, because those monies were, the increase was pledged for the insolvency, to stave off the insolvency of GRS. And as we stand now, we're going into the second year where we're not getting the true up that we need to be able to make the complete payment to the GRS. The GRS is saying that they want to raise the employer contributions in January, and that's not something that the government can sustain. And so these senators are going to have to take a long and hard look at some revenue generating projects and making sure that they manage and they use the oversight function that's granted to them to make sure that they keep the government budget in line.
Yes. Before I get anybody else's input, I do want to let the public know that we are still waiting for those numbers in the St. Thomas, St. John district to come in. We only have the early voting numbers. We're still waiting on these unofficial numbers to come in, which is why we have been talking about St. Croix, because we are still waiting for those St. Thomas, St. John numbers. We are actively working in communication with the election system office. Those numbers are just kind of coming in. So we're waiting to see, we're waiting on the election system to get those numbers to us, and we are going to get them to you as soon as we get them. So please do bear with us as we continue our election night coverage. But, to Jamila's point, she was talking about WAPA and that oversight and what needs to happen and those challenges that the 36th legislature are going to be facing. Fancy, I want you to, kind of give me your input on what you've been seeing, because you and I, we spoke briefly about GRS and, some of these challenges and, the overall insolvency. You had some concerns, Well,
this is where the creative minds come in. They're going to have to be innovative, because if they're not, these problems are just going to be compounded. And I think that with especially with Senator Frederick's background and some of these other guys, I think Kurt Viale did a tremendous job as chairman of the Finance Committee in being a watchdog. So it's obvious that they have command of those respective areas, that they're sharp in those respective areas. And that's going to be needed. That's going to be needed because now we're at a juncture where the legislature is going to have to serve as a watchdog as well. I mean, you look at the landscape, you look at all these controversies, you look at everything that is happening with the administration, with the suggestion of improprietories and a whole lot of stuff. The legislature is going to have to start wheeling in a lot of these government departments and asserting themselves.
Yeah. Janika, this is something that you follow, you write about consistently. What are you hoping to see from the 36th legislature on a lot of these challenges that we've been seeing, within the legislature and some of the policies and just these overall projects?
Well, I wanted to just tack on to what Adler was saying, and I think that the 36th legislature is going to have to decide how seriously they're taking themselves. So what I mean by that is, for example, we had the monies that were spent by the executive branch on VTOL stuff before the line of credit was even passed. That was, I believe, Jamila against, how the executive is supposed to move in terms of spending funds. We had a bill that was passed, an appropriation for retroactive pay, and we had OMB come before the legislature and admit that that money was spent on other things, again in violation of the rules of how the executive is supposed to be spending money. What came of that? Did we have any legislative amendments? Did we have any amendments to the code? Did we have any statutes? Did we have any, it kind of just fizzled out. What steps did the legislature take to prevent such an occurrence in the future? Because now we have an executive branch which has demonstrated that they can violate the prescriptive, policy on how they can move money with seemingly no repercussion. So is the 36 going to take itself seriously enough to say, we hold the purse strings and you, executive, cannot do what you want with appropriated funds? I mean, it's a difficult, problem to solve, because exigent circumstances, when you're looking at the executive, may lead you to, hey, we have a big hole here, there's a pool of funds here, let's just juggle and pay back, which was done. But technically speaking, this was in violation of how it was supposed to have gone. So the 36th will have to decide, I think, how seriously they want to take that.
But just for edification, and I think that there's this misnomer in the public, and Janika has alluded to some of that misnomer. The legislature appropriates, when a budget is passed, it's passed on what's called projected revenues. Until the revenues are realized, it's just numbers on a paper. And so what the legislature does have oversight, and while what you're saying is completely accurate, in terms of the VTOL arrangement, there was not an authority for them to use monies out of the general fund until the line of credit was established. There isn't the legislature body, the institution cannot take the executive branch to court. That is not allowable under our system of government. Congress can't take the president to court. You have to have a party to the lawsuit. And so when we say the legislature, and maybe how the legislature could have handled that was get a group of constituents and work with the constituents to file a lawsuit, because we had that happen before. I think when you were a senator, you had we had Senator Chucky Hansen would have a constituent file a lawsuit. She would be the face of the lawsuit. It wouldn't be the legislature proper, but it would be as an individual. You file a lawsuit, but the retroactive, in terms of the retroactive wages, the monies were pledged. The then OMB director pledged to the legislature that they would transfer $25 million of ARPA funds into the general fund to pay, and then there was a time certain attached. The legislature put up guardrails, gave them a timeline, but the legislature does not and cannot print checks. They just don't. And so the remedy to that is to have individuals take the executive branch to court, because the legislature can't take them to court and then have senators or the institution then join as a party and say, we, whatever the legal term is, we want to be party to this because this was the intent of our legislation.
But it speaks to what Adler was saying about requiring creativity.
Yes.
You described that it was something that happened before, and, you need that creative thinking to make sure that you are enforcing, the rules of what needs to be done.
Well, I just want...
All right, I want to pause for a moment. We have the Supervisor of Election, Carolyn Fox, on the line. Good evening, Ms. Fox. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes, I can. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine myself.
All right, can you give us an update on what's happening right now? I know we're waiting for the numbers and stuff for the St. Thomas, St. John district to come in.
So the update I'm getting, and I'm trying to verify, is that one of the judge from Charlotte Amalia School is on the way in. So I'm not sure what happened. And so we are waiting on that judge and that polling place because the next report is going to be election day total. And so that's where you only see early voting. So we are waiting an update. Everyone is in the counting room, so I'm not getting any personal calls to see what else is up other than the judge was on the way in and run late. So we apologize for getting the results out sooner than we can, but we are working on it diligently to get them out as soon as possible.
All right. And, I want to ask you, what are you seeing? What are your thoughts on the numbers and stuff that you're seeing the voter turnout? Speak to us about, what you've seen so far.
So far, again, we calculated because we got the data in the computer system. So it's about 50%. My goal was 60%. But if you compare this to like election in 2020, it's 2020. It's compatible. So we are trying to get improvement. Of course, the age group is still the same, 55 and up. The numbers were close. I'll just give an update on St. Croix. Overall, we had 8,171 voters. Early voting was 3,780, and election day 4,391. So that's 30%. On St. John, we had for early voting 164, and for today, election day, 389, for a total of 553, so about 23%. And then we turn to St. Thomas. They had for early voting 2,887, and for election day, 3,726, for a total of 6,613, 24%. So after 30,000, we have over 30,000 active voters. So that's where we get the 50%. It was about 15,337 persons participated.
What is the total voter registered vote or total registered voters for the St. Croix district?
Well, I have to pull that up quick here. Give me a minute.
Yeah, if you can tell us the total number of registered voters for St. Croix and then those in the St. Thomas, St. John district.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Okay.
All right.
No.
And also, and while you're looking that up, Supervisor Fox, I don't know if you could speak to, I know you said that, we're waiting on that judge from the Charlotte Amalie High School to come in as well, too. After that judge comes in, about how estimate do you think it's going to take to be able to kind of get those numbers in?
Well, I'll estimate about 30 minutes, maybe less, but I don't want to go less, 15 to 30 minutes, based on how much machines was in that voting center. So I get 2 or 3, then you can take one to calculate those jump drive. So I would say between 30 minutes, no later than 30 minutes.
Okay. And can you speak as to maybe why there was a delay in those numbers coming in from the Charlotte Amalie High School?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure because I can't get to speak to anyone because they're in the counting room.
Okay.
So, again, we're going to find out what happened, if we had an issue or whatever, but I don't have that information right now.
Okay.
So I'm in St. Croix trying to get the information myself.
Okay. All right. Were you able to get those numbers for Jamila as it pertains to...
I'm going to pull it up right here right now on the statistics. Give me 1 minute.
All right.
I guess I'm just estimating there's about 16,000 registered voters on St. Croix, between 15 and 16,000, roughly?
Roughly.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so I got it now.
Okay.
You're pretty close. 15,295.
Okay.
And then St. John, 1,173. And then St. Thomas, 14,139. So that gives you 30,607.
All right.
So that's why I just rung it to 30,000 and then just use that percentage. So 15,337 voted today, between early voting and today.
All right. Thank you so very much.
I want to ask Supervisor Fox, are you able to kind of give an estimate as to the total amount of absentee ballots that were mailed out?
Yes, I can. St. Croix, we had 330 absentee ballots that went out. We received 280 back. St. Thomas, St. John, in count plus one, we had 285 absentee that went out. We had 223 that returned. They're going to start counting absentee tomorrow at 2 o'clock. The next absentee count will be November 15th, the 10th-day mark, and we certify on that day.
All right. Okay. Thank you for explaining the process, and we look forward to getting those numbers, huh?
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Okay. Have a good evening.
No, she there.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We were trying to get another question in, but unfortunately.
I was glad for the numbers. I was going to ask her if she could break them down a little bit further by age group, but we can.
But we're seeing that we have 15,000 registered voters, you know, and we're only seeing a small percentage of that, you know.
Well, 55%, that's over more than half the registered voters participate. Some would say that's good. I personally would like to see that number higher to the 70-80%, which means that our voters are engaged in what's happening in the community. But that tells me that we have work to do to educate the voters on the importance of voting and on the process, you know, and maybe if we open up the candidate pool, that would, you know, further get people excited about coming out to participate.
In the process. Raven, I want to ask you, we're hearing the 55 and older, they're the ones that are showing up as well too. We're 50% of those. What can we, as the younger generation, those of us who are of the younger generation who are actively engaged, what do you think is preventing, you know, our colleagues from coming out and voting?
It's a lot of voter apathy that's going on. Me personally, I have been registered to vote from the time I was old enough. When I first registered to vote, I think I went ICM. So I've kind of always been really kind of committed to the process. And with that, I've kind of noticed that there's a bit of a disconnect. If you don't already have like a passion for it, there's kind of almost like there's a barrier there from getting involved and learning more. And I think that part of that barrier is education. I think that we really, really need to hone in on our civic education. I think that that is really the first step to getting everybody into the process. I think that with things like this, there's always going to be those people that are never, doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what you tell them, they may not want to participate. But there's also a large amount of my age group that wants to participate. They just don't really know the means to do that. And they don't have a firm understanding of where they sit within the wider political process. Something that I kind of wanted to touch on when looking at the Senate for the St. Croix district is the fact that of that 7, there's only really 1 that's a new face. A common refrain I see every election season is, oh, vote all them out, vote all them out. And I know that there are plenty of criticisms to be had of incumbents, you know, but I think it needs to be balanced with the fact that we don't just need new faces in there, we need competent faces in there. We need people that we can tell and we can have confidence in, that they know what they're doing, that they don't just bring new ideas, they bring new good ideas.
Yes.
I think that it's really important that our candidates have, you know, a good background and a good education level that's related to the task that a senator is meant to take on. I think that oftentimes, me included, will see like an activist or an advocate in the community and we immediately say, oh, run for Senate, run for Senate. I think that
it doesn't always translate.
Right, it doesn't always translate. There are roles that all of us can play within this system that don't necessarily require you to be within the Senate. There are things that all of us are supposed to be doing to make this system run well, you know? And I think that there's an element of education that should be happening so that we're all on the same page of what the Senate does, what the executive branch does, and what am I supposed to be doing to hold these people accountable.
Yeah. Janika, I want to ask you, what do you think can be done to kind of inspire that generation to come out?
What I wonder, I'm sorry to answer your question with a question, but what I'm wondering is in households, within families, what's the discussion like? Not just during election time, but just, you know, every day. One of the things that was I don't even know if it was communicated explicitly to me as a child, but I absorbed somehow the understanding and idea that it was my duty as a citizen to vote. And, you know, the question of who to vote for was, I wouldn't say irrelevant, but it was like, you don't have to like your choices, but you have to make a choice. That is your duty. That is the price that you pay to be a citizen in the country. So are these values being transmitted to the younger generation? People, as Supervisor Falk said, 55 and up are voting. What is the conversation that they are having with the younger people in their family about the importance of participation in the democratic process and the importance of, you know, you may not get your candidate of choice, but you certainly now have skin in the game, and in aggregate you can start to move the needle to where you want to go. Something that I heard online somebody say, and it really resonated with me because I sit more on the progressive side of the political spectrum, and it is the concept of voting for who you want to fight against.
Right.
All right? So you're not necessarily voting for the person that you like or the person that shares all your values or the person that, you know, you're going to be so copacetic with that you could just turn your back. But there are people who are closer to you on the spectrum that you could maybe vote for and then push them when they're in office to, you know, espouse the policies that you like. And there are people who you're never going to see eye to eye with. They are just way, you know, opposed to all of what you want. So the concept of voting and voting strategically is, I think, something that younger voters need to really understand, that it's not about finding a candidate that matches you, but finding somebody close enough and then using their term in office to push them forward.
I could only speak from a realistic standpoint, and I'll give you an example. And I want to address something that Jamila was saying earlier in terms of the Senate can't sue the government or the executive branch in this case, right? The 10% set aside, income tax refunds. I took the governor to court, the governor and the administration to court. Now,
as an
the
individual.
thin line, the thin line here is whether or not you could establish standings. Now, how does that intertwine with energizing voters? Voters have to feel inspired. Voters get motivated when you attack bread and butter issues. Because you see, when you attack those issues, those are the issues that are spoken in the household. And I think today that's where candidates are falling short. They're not coming across as being fighters, fighting for something, not just out there just fighting for the sake of fighting, but fighting for a cause. That's what motivates voters at all ages. If you think about income tax refunds, you had taxpayers, being who overpaid, of course, being owed for 5 to 6 years. I took the matter to court and I challenged the system, and I was victorious in getting that set aside respected, where I got a stipulation agreement by the administration where they had to set aside the 10% in a separate account under the general ledger to be able to establish continuity in paying people the income tax refunds. Now, we know it's in every age group that people are owed income tax refunds. So that's how you motivate a base. And I'm just using this one little isolated situation in energizing them. And whether or not you can, in fact, sue the administration, yes, you can. Sue the administration, but you have to be careful because you have to establish standings. Standings meaning, how were you personally affected? I've been a taxpayer before I was a senator. You see, and I was owed income tax refunds. So I utilized that because let's be realistic. We live in a small community, and a lot of people are very apprehensive when it comes to challenging the government because they feel there's going to be some form of retaliation.
And
So they try to thread a careful line because this small community, your sister, your cousin, your uncle, your brother, somebody might be working for the administration, and you don't want anyone to suffer the consequences.
But is that affecting the younger generation from wanting to participate?
It does because everybody wants somebody to fight for them.
Yes.
And I don't want it to be misconstrued. I'm talking about the legislature as an institution, because I think it's important that, as Raven said, civics is important. And one thing I have learned is that we have so many people working inside the institution as well that don't understand the functions of the institution and don't understand civics and how each branch of government works. And so when I said that the legislature can't sue, I'm talking about the institution in and of itself. The institution politic can't sue. An individual senator who may have standing, like I said, can take the matter to court, and then the legislature can say, listen, we want to, I'm not the sister that went to law school, but we want to be party to the lawsuit. This was the intent of our become enjoined maybe is the term. This was the intent of the legislation that was passed. It was our intent to pay the retirees $25 million by December 31st.
Yes.
And that was legislation that Senator Fred Gregory crafted with the stipulations that it had to be paid, because what you see oftentimes, and Adla can speak to this, is that if you don't put in benchmarks in legislation, if you don't put in guardrails in legislation, it is when the executive branch, when they go to execute, they execute at will, at whim, and at wants and desires, and it may never happen.
Yes.
And so you have to put in benchmarks. And this 36th legislature, from where I sit and I understand, is going to be tasked. The budget was cut where people's other services and charges categories was reduced to where only the contract amounts in this current fiscal year was put into the budget. It's a very lean budget. And we know that there's revenues to be collected on the street. And we want to make sure that the members of the 36 continue the oversight and the work that began in this 35th legislature with the newly formed Committee on Budget. Because people talk about finance. This isn't really a finance issue. Finance is a broader scope. We're talking about your budget, your appropriation levels, and then the financing of government, which speaks to bond issuances, long-term solvency issues with like the GRS, WAPA, and stuff like that. But the budget and appropriations portion, this 36th legislature is going to have to deal with to make sure that structural deficit is eliminated and reduced.
Definitely. So I do want to go back, though. We were talking about the voter age range, 55 and over. And I think one of the things that we saw in trying to get young people energized and interested in the party, and it starts in the schools. We talked about civics. And we saw a number of polls that came out from the schools. From the elementary school, we saw one from the Ivana Yudorikin High School in St. Thomas, from Charlotte Amalie. We saw one from Complex, I believe, and from Central, if I'm not mistaken. So we saw a number of polls. And I think one of the disappointing things that we saw was the comments and the responses from the adults and the criticism that they gave of the students and how they voted and the overall makeout. And I was incredibly disappointed as someone who is a parent as well too, as someone who is married to an educator as well too. And, in getting these young people involved who are going to graduate from high school, the attacks, I was incredibly disappointed by it. Janika, you saw some of that criticism. Tell me, does that deter the young people from wanting to participate?
Of course it does. Of course it does. I mean, you have a mock poll. I would imagine that some of the students may not necessarily be deeply knowledgeable about, policy issues, They may be looking at face recognition, name recognition, and to see people lambasting them for their choices or even suggesting that their choices were wrong choices. How could you tell somebody that their choice of representative is the wrong choice? That's, I think...
Admonishing them have diminishing returns.
It does. It does.
Yeah, so I thought that the exercise was a valuable exercise for students. It teaches you learn by doing, right? So you're not just going to turn 18 and then a switch just flips and all of a sudden you're some engaged member of civic society. It starts in the schools with practice and discussions and all of these things. So I was really disappointed and quite shocked actually to see the level of critique and vitriol, I would even
from
say.
Adults to children.
From
adults to children. I mean, I think it was incredibly disappointing. And I think it's something that we have to really, really put a stop to here in this community.
Again, it's social media. Social media has allowed everybody to feel that they have become experts in all arenas, all over the place. But I think that what those adults miss is that many of these schools invited candidates. And your candidate of choice may not have participated in the school, and these students may have only met those candidates that they voted for and had a connection with those candidates. And you can't judge somebody, their relationship. You just really can't.
Yeah, and again, as we're waiting for the St. Thomas numbers to come in, we are sitting here and we are talking about the adult criticism that we saw from adults on social media criticizing some of the students and their participation and how they voted in these mock elections. And for those of you who are interested in seeing it, you can go to the WTJX Facebook page. Those of you who have already made your comments, don't go and delete them now. Let everyone see what you said. What you said. Don't go and remove them now. But we do want to encourage the young people who did participate and congratulate them for going out there and for participating and doing your civic duty. And hopefully, when you turn 18, you do take that opportunity to go and to register to vote and vote however you see fit.
This makes me think on the what opportunities students do have in the schools to engage in civics and things like that. Something that I tried to touch on earlier was a resource book that I held very close to my heart for a long time. I got it from out of the back of my VI history teacher's classroom after she was retiring. I found an old work booklet that Ruth Mulinar made. And it was made during the 4th Constitutional Convention. It's a bound workbook full of activities for the students. It has pictures of all of the candidates, a little description of them, and it's a workbook with activities so that an educator can take students through the process, engage them in the constitutional process, get them thinking, get them considering. We don't do things like that anymore. And it blows my mind. Thankfully, I've since donated that book to the Caribbean Genealogy Library, but I scanned it before doing it, so I have it in my Google Drive and I share it with anybody that wants it. But I really wish that these were the kind of approaches that we took to engaging students in the process instead of what we have is mock elections during election season, and then with that little step that we're taking, we admonish them as they partake in that. That's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I want to go to the phone line because we do have Delegate to Congress Stacey Plaskett that is on the line. Good evening, Delegate. Are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
All right. Good evening and congratulations on winning results tonight. Tell me, your thoughts on what you have to say to the people of the Virgin Islands.
Well, I'm just, so grateful to the people for re-electing me to this position, that I am just so humbled to represent them in Washington and really support the work that's going on here in the Virgin Islands from a federal level. It's been now, I can't even believe that this is my 6th term. I would not have thought that I would be in this job at this long period of time, but there are new challenges each and every term that allow me to feel invigorated, and I think I just have an incredible team that's working with me to get the job done. And I have to say that I'm just, so grateful to the people, because there has been a lot of negative campaigning going, a lot of negativity thrown at me in the last 2 years. And with opponents, my numbers are still at the turnout percentages that they have been each and every time that I've had individuals running against me. And so I think that my work speaks louder than the cacophony of noise, and that has what has driven these numbers and just made me feel so proud to be a Virgin Islander and so proud to represent the people of the territory.
All right. Janika, you had a comment or a question for the delegate?
Well, it's actually going right back to the issue that I had expressed earlier in the program. Delegate Plaskett, I was wondering whether you had a strategy, given, that all of the polls are predicting a very tight national race, given your posture vocally against the Republican presidential nominee. Do you have a strategy in place for how you're going to be able to advance the agenda of the Virgin Islands in the case that the next Congress and the White House is held by the Republicans?
Sure, of course. Throughout my time in Washington, I have represented myself as a Democrat. I've been proud to hold fast to the Democratic caucus. They have rewarded me, in fact, with the ability to be on the Ways and Means Committee, which is the oldest and most exclusive committee. I was put on that committee unanimously by my caucus. And I have to remind people that the House holds the purse strings. Budgets are passed by the U.S. House of Representatives and then brought to the Senate and then signed by the President. If monies are appropriated by the Congress, then that's what is going to come to the territory. I'm excited about the Democrats taking back the House and Hakeem Jeffries being the Speaker of the House, who is a great friend of the Virgin Islands and also a very good friend of mine. I'm considered one of his lieutenants. And so I know that our interests will be taken care of in the House. And aside from that, I have, even now, with the Republicans controlling the House, over 40 pieces of legislation which are bipartisan. I have reached across the aisle when necessary and when appropriate, finding members who have issues that are similar to ours, whether that's port issues with members when there was Republicans controlled the Alaska delegation, or with Louisiana members when it comes to issues of hurricanes, and, across the aisle, talking with Marco Rubio and other senators from different states when that bears within the interests of the people of the territory. So I'm going to continue doing that. I've had plenty of instances when I have had very strident debate with my Republican colleagues and then gone out for dinner with them afterwards. We recognize in the House that we are representing the interests of our people, and, that's the way I'm going to continue to operate. And I think at the end of the day, Virgin Islanders want truth, and they want us to stand up for rights. That's another reason that they send us to Washington. My job is not just to represent the interests of the people of the territory, but to be their voice on issues of national importance. We have disproportionately large numbers of Virgin Islanders who are in our military, who are on the front line, and those national interests and issues of security affect us. And so having a voice in that, I think, is very important.
All right. Well, Delegates Plaskett, I want to thank you for calling in with us tonight. And again, congratulations. And we look forward to seeing the work that comes forward from your office.
Thank you. God bless the Virgin Islands. And thank you all for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to another 2 years of being the voice of the Virgin Islands in Washington. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. All right, so I know you all have been waiting for these numbers from the St. Thomas, St. John district. We now have them in. And For the delegate to a House of Representatives, we have Stacey Plaskett with 4,569 votes. For the senator at large, we have Democratic incumbent Angel Bolquez Jr. with 3,249 votes, with independent challenger Lorelei Marsh Monsanto with 2,362 votes. For the making up the top 7 vote getters for the legislature in St. Thomas and St. John District, we have frontrunner Democratic incumbent Milton Potter with 3,976 votes. Independent Senator Alma Francis Heiliger with 3,872 votes. Dwayne DeGraff with 3,606 votes. Incumbent Senator Marvin Blyden with 3,429 votes. New freshman Senator Democratic Avery Lewis with 3,349 votes. Incumbent Senator Carla Joseph with 3,338 votes, and Democratic Senator Ray Fonseca with 2,257 votes. And that makes up the top vote getters in the St. Thomas St. John District. For the Board of Education, we have Dr. Kaiser Callwood with 3,419 votes, and Attorney Nandi Siku with 3,017 votes. For the Board of Elections, we have Lawrence Busholti with 2,934 votes, Shanil Callwood with 2,704 votes, and Barbara Laron with 1,939 votes. For the 6th Constitutional Convention at large, we have Alicia Wells with 2,816 votes and Hadia Seward with 1,510 votes. For the 6th Constitutional Convention, you could vote for 7. Unfortunately, there were not 7 people that were on the ballot. So all 4 individuals will advance on a seat for the 6th Constitutional Convention. And the top vote getter in that race is Stedman Hodge with 3,413 votes, followed by Arturo Watlington Jr. with 2,721 votes. Rudell Hodge Jr. with 1,752 votes, and David Silverman with 1,431 votes. There were a total of 624 write-in votes, and we'll have to wait and see, what those results come about with. So tell me, in the St. Thomas St. John District, are you surprised with any of the numbers that we're seeing here this evening?
No, not at all. I said from the very beginning that I thought that Avery Lewis had a foundation and a machine behind him, and that he would be up in the ranking. And if you recall, I called 2 additional names, and one in particular, Chanel Francis.
Yes.
You could see where she is.
Yes.
You see?
Yes, she is number 8.
Within striking distance.
Yes, she's only 178
I believe
votes behind Ray
Exactly.
I believe that was the same result at the last election, that she just missed it.
Missed it.
So, when we shift back over to the St. Thomas District, that's the reason I was asking a question about the absentee ballots. So it's 280 absentee ballots here in St. Croix. If you look at the margin between Maurice James and K Pod here, it's only 214 votes.
Yeah.
Now, let's hope that if the board wrote all the absentee voters, because absentee voters vote really strange.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you fail to make contact with them, you're forgotten. So you don't want them votes to come in 3-1.
Yeah.
Because then, if the other person actually wrote the absentee voters, they could get the vote count that they need in terms of 4-1.
But these but a majority of these absentee votes, there are people who didn't want to participate in the early voting, are like seniors who get the absentee vote count, and in order for to close the gap, you have to get 2 votes for every 1 vote that the other person gets. So I think
in this case it's 4-1.
Yeah, and I think it's just it's
highly
unlikely that the St. Croix numbers are going to change.
Yeah.
Highly unlikely that the St. Thomas numbers are going to change. But what's interesting in the St. Thomas and St. John district is that the gap between the 6th and the 7th place is over 1,000 votes. Yeah. So Carla Joseph has 3,000 votes, and Ray Fonseca has 2,257 votes. And right behind of him, 178 votes below him is Chanel Fina Francis. which tells me that the people in St. Thomas were struggling to find a seventh person, and that by virtue of him being in the Senate, he wasn't anybody's first choice. And it may be because of his posture in the Senate. He comes across sometimes as, you know, what does he say, my son, you know, whatever slang terms he used. You know, it worked previously. Senator White had a similar kind of disposition on the floor. I don't know that this resonates with him. But, and then Avery's number, based on the fact that the whole of the Brian Roach team was behind of him, you would have expected that he would have run higher. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger and Dwayne DeGraff, who have been very vocal against giving the governor a line of credit and supporting any of the governor's initiatives that come down to the legislature, they run second and third. And the space between the number one vote getter and the number two vote getter is only 104 votes. So again, that tells you that in the St. Thomas district, while the Democrats ran well, there seems to be a discontent with how the administration is leading. That's what I read into these numbers.
And I think you're right. And if we go back, if you recall I could use as an example my runs for the Senate. The margin between myself and the second place finisher was like anywhere from 2,000 and 3,000 votes. You know, and that was people being able to identify you with an issue and marry you to what they consider to be a bread and butter issue. Something that truly affected them, and they could relate to it.
And that happened up until last election, actually.
Messaging.
You know, because Senator Fred Gregory, you know, she's going out as I think this is her third term. She won every primary, every general election, and absent of one term, the margin was substantial between the first and the second place, if my memory serves me correctly.
I mean, we're not seeing, we have 285 absentee ballots that went out for the St. Thomas St. John district, 223 that are coming back in. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if Chanel, you know, Fina Francis, who has 2,079 votes, will be able to kind of bump out Ray Fonseca in that regard. But
I don't think there's enough. That would mean that everybody that got a ballot voted for her and didn't vote for him.
Exactly. You know. So. But it's going to be interesting to see. You know, here for the senator at large, we have Angel Borges Jr. 3,249. Now, Lorelei did a lot better in the St. Thomas St. John district, you know, than she did in the St. Croix district. In the St. Croix district, she was able to garner roughly 1,600 votes, whereas in the St. Thomas St. John district, she was able to garner 2,300 votes, you know, roughly 2,300 votes to his 32. You know, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you know, it's clear that the people on St. Croix, we just don't know who she is. We don't know her messaging. She did not have up any signs that I saw on St. Croix. I didn't hear any radio ads for her on St. Croix. I did not see her on St. Croix. And I think that the votes indicate the lack of campaigning on St. Croix.
Well, we do have Angel Borges on the line, so... Good evening, Senator Borges.
Yes, hi, good evening.
All right, congratulations to you. What do you have to say to the people of the Virgin Islands who voted in for another term?
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you, and we did it, and I'm incredibly humbled and grateful for everyone who came out and showed up and believed in the vision for a stronger, more united Virgin Islands, and this victory isn't mine, it's ours, and I speak... well, actually, it speaks to what is considered to be unity and just togetherness. I'm really humbled and thankful for this opportunity to serve the people of the Virgin Islands again.
All right. And Raven, do you have any questions for Senator Borges there?
Well, first, I'd like to congratulate you, Senator Borges, on a well-run campaign. I would love to hear what can the people of St. John expect of you in this next legislature?
I apologize. Could you repeat that?
So I congratulated you on a well-run campaign, and I asked, well, what can the people of St. John expect to see of you in the next legislature?
Or you can expect a lot of what they've already seen, in the sense of we've passed a number of pieces of legislation that spoke to St. John, whether it was 10 million to the Cultural Center, appropriating funds to the St. John Rescue for a new vehicle and for training EMT officers, appropriating funds for the VI Fire EMS for 2 Type 3 pumper fire trucks to traverse the narrow roads of St. John, 500,000 for refurbishing the restrooms on St. John. But there's a number of things that I have in the pipeline coming up that I really want to look at, pertinent to the road between Cruz Bay and Coral Bay. That's the only road, Centerline Road. And we really need to start looking at having another road in the event of whether it's natural disasters or any other incident, in the sense of landslides and so forth, because it's a public safety issue. There is no harbor dock in Coral Bay for ships to bring in goods, and the infrastructure of the island has been growing and growing and growing, and it's about time that we find an alternative road between the towns of Cruz Bay and St. John. So that's one of the measures that I'm looking forward to bringing in the 36th legislature of the Virgin Islands, along with a number of other things to include, we're running out of cemetery space on the island of St. John. If you do not belong to a congregation, you are forced to move or have your loved ones buried on the island of St. Thomas. And in some cases, that's not always a beneficial thing. So those are some of the things that I'm looking forward to bringing forward in the 36th legislature, specifically for St. John, to include road infrastructure.
Janika?
Senator Bolkes, congratulations on your election. My question for you is the issue of land and housing is one that is a perennial concern for St. Jonians. Housing costs and the price of finding a place to live. Is there anything that you believe you can advance in the 36th legislature along with your colleagues to address that concern for those who live in St. John?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. And land and housing has been a long-standing issue on the island of St. John, being that the land taxes on St. John are higher than any other island. And my opinion on the matter is that we need to figure out some sort of formula or matrix that speaks to the cubic size of a home, in addition to the materials that a home is made out of, and of course any other amenities, to sort of figure out what is going to be considered a reasonable amount of land tax for an individual or family to pay. The issue is right now, as it stands, is that when you build a mansion, larger home than somebody who may live next door in the adjacent parcel that maybe have a wooden structure or a shack, they are now subjugated to having their land tax go up exponentially because the other individual in the adjacent parcel has a home that is considered to be of more worth. And I think that we really need to look at that. And that is a very tricky situation, but I'm of the belief that some sort of formula or matrix needs to be created to speak to that situation.
Okay. And I'd like
Senator Bolkes, congratulations. This is former Senator Donna Stogg.
Yes, Senator. Good evening, Senator. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations to you. I think you ran a good race. And of course, the power of incumbency served you well. Question that I have for you. I know that you chaired a particular committee. Is there any other committee in particular that you're interested in chairing the next time with the organization of this new legislature?
I think, I believe that whatever transpires within the caucusing of the 36th legislature, we will deliberate, what strengths or weaknesses, if that each individual has, in the sense of trying to come up with what committee he or she would be chairing. I have become very fond of the committee that I was inherited. Culture is very important to me. Youth and aging is also, you cannot, in my opinion, have a dialogue about youth without including aging. And sports and parks, our recreational green space areas are also important to our society, especially in this technological age. So I have no issue going back to that specific committee. However, initially when I did come in the 34th legislature of the Virgin Islands, I did have a particular interest in economic development and agriculture, which in the 35th I serve as the vice chair of that committee. But I believe that regardless of whatever committee I decide to chair or work out with the caucus, I will always do my best to be as productive as possible.
All right. Well, Senator Bolkes, we want to thank you again for calling in and congratulations. We look forward to seeing what's going to happen with this new term.
Thank you so much, and thank you to WTJX for all of the coverage that they have done so far in the election process.
Sorry, I had to cut you off. The phone line was breaking up, but we do have Senator Marvin Blyden here on the line. Good evening, Senator Blyden. Senator Blyden, I'd like you to turn down your volume in the background. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do. I don't have it on. I don't have the radio on. I'm good.
Good evening, Senator Blyden. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. What are your words to the people of the St. Thomas, St. John district who voted you in for yet another term?
Well, first of all, I'm truly humble, thankful, and grateful for the people of the St. Thomas, St. John vote of confidence in me and putting the trust in me once again for the 6th time. I must say also, I want to first thank my wife, my family, my team, my support staff, and the people of the St. Thomas, St. John district. I really, really do appreciate their support all the time.
All right.
Well, good evening, Senator. Congratulations. I didn't get to talk to you today. This is former Senator Donna Stokes.
Yes.
But you took off on me and I couldn't wait around. I had to catch a flight. But congratulations. It was a race well run. And I'm sure it's what I expected, as I mentioned to you. And I know that the challenges before you are going to be insurmountable. You guys have a lot of issues to address. Is there any anticipation, or are you going to be the Senate President?
Honestly, Senator, you know how it works.
He's trying to set you up.
That's fine. That's the way it works, you know what I'm saying? But we're having discussions, myself and Senator Potter, of course, from this district. We get on pretty well, and we're having discussions, we're having conversations, and I look forward to having further discussion with the whole team in terms of the caucus moving forward. But one thing I must say, though, despite the outcome, my aim and my goal for the 36th legislature, first and foremost, and I campaign on that, is the quality of life issues, the low-hanging fruits. Because here it is, we have all of these dollars, these federal dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. And as I go out every single day, and as people come to my office every day, they feel like nothing is happening. They feel like there is no movement. They feel like, we have neglected them. They are not asking for much. You know what I'm saying? They're not asking for a handout. They just want to be treated fairly in terms of having a level playing field and having the issues addressed. And I can understand how they feel, and I understand the frustration many times. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of frustrating for me. So I honestly had several situations within the last 3 weeks that really changed my whole mindset in terms of what I would like to see in a 36 with our caucus and the body of the whole, addressing these quality of life issues, going to the departments more on a regular basis, having conversations with employees and management, and working with, not against, but working with them to really address these issues, really spend those funds as they come through, and assure that we don't send back a dime, and assure that we make good on behalf of the people. Because I'm telling you, especially when it comes to housing, I mean, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Like I said, I have been situations that I personally have dealt with and got solutions. And it was not much of a heavy lift, but at the same time, it's about compassion, having compassion for the individuals. You see what I'm saying? Being empathetic and really caring and wanting to make a difference on behalf of the people. And I'm not seeing enough of that. So that's going to be my vision, my goal, my team, my staff. I'm not focused on legislation, you know. This term, I have enough legislation in the pipeline. I'm focused on the quality of life issues and how me and my team can address them one at a time and assure that the people get the help that is so much deserved. You know, because it's frustrating. So I look forward to doing that. And when it comes to small business, that's also a passion of mine. And there's some impactful legislation that I'm channeling through the process right now that's going to assist our business owners in terms of especially construction companies with all the bundles and all this fund that's coming through here. We must protect our local contractors. So that's my passion. That's what I'm focused on for this term.
All right, it was very interesting to hear. So we're definitely going to be looking forward to that, Senator Blyden. And again, I want to thank you and congratulations once again.
Thank you so much and have a blessed evening, everyone. Thank you.
You as well. All right, so we have the phone lines. So we do have Senator Carla Joseph, who is on the line. Senator Joseph, good evening, and thank you for calling in. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for having me this evening. Good evening to your listening audience, and I suspect you also have viewing audience since this is WTJX.
Correct. Senator Joseph, congratulations once again. What do you have to say to the people of the St. Thomas, St. John district who have, cast their votes for you to serve yet another term?
I want to say my deepest thanks, and I'm very grateful to continue to do the work that I've set out to do, and I'm thankful for all of the people who have voted for me. I will try my very best, not try, but I will do my very best to continue to be the strong leader, the person who people can come to, the people's person, and to be a champion, especially for our young people and our elders, and also women. So I really want to really thank everyone for coming out to vote, those who voted early, those who voted today, and I really am thankful that they appreciate and also respect the work I've done. We have a lot of work to do, and still to continue to do, and so I ask for our electorate and the whole Virgin Islands prayer as we continue to make this Virgin Islands a beautiful place for all to live and address the bread and butter issues that we have before us to deal with for our people.
All right. And Raven, you had a question for Senator Joseph?
Yes, I do. Congratulations, Senator Joseph. Can you tell me a little bit about what major lessons you'll be taking with you into the 36th legislature?
One of the major lessons I will take with me is consensus building. That is going to be one of the major lessons. Also, just to continue to work with each of my colleagues the best that I can, and to stand firm on my decisions. I made some decisions that impacted our people. I don't know if that had a factor in where my placement was, but I definitely want to continue to have those dialogues and discussions, and also continue to put forward some meaningful legislation that is going to have a positive impact on our people, especially the downtrodden, those who are the least among us.
All right. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Senator Joseph, Carla Joseph. Congratulations. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh,
this is former Senator Adela Fonsi, Donna Stork.
Former Senator Donna Stork. How you doing?
I'm fine. I wanted to just congratulate you, and of course, I'm quite sure that you remember what I said to you at the polling area. It's exactly what I expected, and I just wanted to congratulate you on a race well run. Your visibility and the enthusiasm of your workers truly displayed that you guys was on the verge of winning and, garnering as much support as you possibly can. So congratulations on being victorious.
Thank you so much. Thank you so kindly. I appreciate it, especially coming from you. You know, you used to ask me some tough questions before I even became elected, and I hope you don't mind me sharing.
You could go right ahead.
Okay, because I managed a program, managed a federal program with federal monies, and that's part of my acumen, managing federal monies and also writing grants. And I would come to the Horace Callwood Breakfast Club and asking for support for the program I managed, which was Youth Bill. It was a program geared to at-risk young people. And you asked, I mean, you were so inquisitive and just right on point with your question. You asked, what are your outcomes? How are you doing with the management of the funds? And I reported to you accurately and truthfully, said we are exceeding our threshold. We are not meeting our threshold requirements. We are exceeding it. And when I heard that question, I said, this is a man who knows about grant management and those thresholds we have to meet. And so that's what we were doing. And so, you know, I take some of that and I put it in the work I do on behalf of our people when I ask those hard questions, especially when we're managing all of the federal funds. And that's my acumen. So I have to ask it because that's taxpayers. I keep stressing it. It's taxpayers' money, and they work hard for their money, and the government takes a portion of it to provide services for needy communities, needy persons, needy families. And so we have to be able to be very accountable for that money and transparent because it's the taxpayers' money. We are using taxpayers' money. So I really always want to thank you for asking that very hard question.
Well, I really appreciated your response. And, you know, and that's why you're a senator today, and I wish you well.
Yes, yes, we all do. Senator Joseph, I want to thank you so much again for calling in this evening and for spending a little bit of time with us. Again, congratulations, and we'll look forward to seeing what comes out of your this term.
Thank you so kindly. I appreciate all of you deeply, and keep up the good work, WTJX. You do a fantastic job.
Thank you for that.
All.
Thank you.
God bless. God bless.
All right. All right, and I believe that we have our newcomer, Mr. Avery Lewis, on the line. Good evening, Mr. Lewis. Well, now incoming Senator Avery Lewis. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so
good evening to you and the listening audience and the viewing audience.
yes, and you know, again, congratulations. Tell me, what do you have to say to the people of the St. Thomas, St. John district who have now voted you in to serve in this new chapter, now stepping away from administrator to senator?
Foremost, I'd like to say thank you to Father God for giving me health and strength along this journey. Then I'd like to say thank you to the people of the Virgin Islands. It's with gratitude. Overwhelmingly, I say this, you know, there's not many words I could say, but I want to say thank you for giving me the vote of confidence, and I'm ready to work for the people of the Virgin Islands. I'm accessible, and I'm ready. I'm committed to face the vexing issues of the people of the Virgin Islands and tackle them head on. And thank you again to the people of the Virgin Islands for that vote of confidence today. Early voting, November 5th, and my awesome committee. I thank them and my family and friends. I thank them wholeheartedly. Without them, I would not be here today. Awesome team, awesome family, awesome friends. Thank you wholeheartedly.
All right. Janika, do you have an awesome question for Mr. Lewis?
Well, I certainly hope it's awesome. Congratulations on your election, Mr. Lewis. What I wanted to find out from you is, what do you think you can take from your experience as administrator, as former administrator, into the legislature? What are you going to bring with you?
Well, I bring a wealth of information. I bring a wealth of knowledge, experience, and not only before as the administrator. I prepared myself. I was a classroom teacher. I have a good background in education. I've been a union president. A central AFT, Central Labor Council president. Different boards and commissions, Economic Development Authority. Government Development Bank, plenty different other organizations. and committees. So I've been preparing myself for the role of this. And as we get into the administrator's role, Governor Bryan, Lieutenant Governor Roach, afforded me the ability to be in different meetings, aspects of the decision-making, listening, So I think I come with a wealth of experience and innovation. That's what we need now to propel these islands forward. Innovation and creativity.
Okay. A follow-up question to that is, what is top of mind for you in terms of the issues that you want to be addressing and tackling in the 36th legislature?
Well, I have about 3 or 4 of them, but one of them is ordinances. As I go around this community, I want to clean up Virgin Islands. I want to be able to promote our island. We have to have some new revenue generations because we want more services in the community. So we have to be able to pay for these things. I look at different avenues for different revenue generation measures. I see that we have our $15 to $20 billion to infuse to propel these islands, to transform these islands, to harden our infrastructure, put new infrastructure in places, new schools, new hospitals, new ports. Every day as we go along, we see opportunities, and we at the Virgin Islands and Virgin Islanders need to be at the cutting edge of this experience.
All right. Well, again, incoming Senator Avery Lewis, thank you so much for taking the time out and for calling in. And again, congratulations. We look forward to seeing what's going to come of your freshman term.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you to WTJX, as usual, for everything you do for this community. Thank you to the people of the Virgin Islands for the vote of thanks again.
Thank you for
Have
that.
a wonderful evening.
You as well. All right, so I do believe we have our top vote getter in the St. Thomas St. John district, incumbent Senator Milton Potter. Thank you so much for calling in, and congratulations.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Potter, tell me, what are your reaction? Top vote getter in the St. Thomas St. John district. What do you have to say to the people of the district?
My feeling is gratitude. I just sincerely want to express my gratitude to the people of the Virgin Islands for their support. This is my 3rd go-round in the arena. I think what the people of the Virgin Islands have seen is that, they elect in their wisdom a variety of people with different personalities, different strengths, different weaknesses. I think when you vote for Milton Potter, you get someone who brings a level of integrity to the table, and someone who is focused on, improving the quality of life for the people of the Virgin Islands. I get it right every time, but every single time, my intentions are going to be in order. It's going to be focused on what can we do to improve the plight of the people in this territory. And people saw it, and I'm appreciative to that.
And I want to ask you, do you think that this, coming in as the top vote getter, do you think this is now a mandate for you to become the next Senate president?
But look, I am not going to shy away from this leadership position. I know the presidency will be in the district of St. Thomas St. John. We're going to meet at some point to discuss that. But it is something that I would consider if my colleagues put their faith and trust in me leading the institution. It is something that I would consider.
All right. And I believe, Fonzie, you had a question for...
I just wanted to... Senator Potter, how are you?
I'm excellent, Fonzie. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. I don't know if I should start calling you Senate President.
It will be a little premature, you know that.
But anyway, I wanted to say congratulations to you, and I wanted to congratulate your campaign team. I ran into Dwayne Carlwood today, and I know Cosmic Christian, basically your entire staff, and how hard they have worked out there. And I think it's paid off today that you emerged victorious, and not just victorious, but you came out the #1 vote getter. And of course, the anticipation for the public is going to be that it's the logical choice for him to be Senate President. Is there any particular areas that you would like to focus on?
Absolutely. I think it's time for us to bring some relief to the people of the Virgin Islands with respect to the transformation of the Water and Power Authority. In my campaigning, day to day, door to door, that is what resoundingly is on the minds of the people of the Virgin Islands. When are we going to see some improvement You know, when are we going to see something better than paying premium dollar for shaky service? It is something that is serious. It's connected with every element of our community. It's tied to WAPA. You know, so I think we need to collectively focus on that. If it's one thing we do in the next legislature, working, of course, in concert with the executive branch and the leadership of WAPA, we have to figure out a way to do something differently to improve the Water and Power Authority. That is something that I want to put most of my focus on in the next legislature.
All right. Well, Mr. Senator Potter, we want to thank you so much for your time. And again, congratulations. And we'll look forward to seeing whether or not you're going to be the Senate President for the 36th legislature. We ain't trying to goat mouth you now, but...
Thank you very much, folks.
All right.
Y'all doing a very excellent service. Very good show. Very good program.
Thank you.
I don't know if you guys were paying attention, but I do. I pay attention. Senator Blyden said, and Senator Blyden said, I work very closely with Mr. Potter, and we're friends. He has already conceded the presidency to Potter. I pay attention. I realize that. I realize that. I don't know if y'all caught that, but
I caught it.
That's what I heard. So, you know.
Because remember, I broached the subject.
Senator Potter, I'm going to bid you farewell. Good night before we say anything else.
Before you get me in trouble. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. All right.
All right.
Yeah, but in Senator Donna Sturrock's conversation with Senator Blyden, when asked the question, you could see he was equivocating and he was, you know, juggling to not say what he alluded to.
Yes.
And so you could read between the lines that he is willing to step back, get whatever it is he needs to get, and he works with Potter. So we'll see if our predictions here.
That's a lot of reading, Jamila.
Well, we do have, we do have Senator Alma Francis Heiliger on the line. Senator Heiliger, good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
How does it feel, you know, number 2, independent, you know, in the sea of Democrats as well, too? You know, what are your thoughts this evening?
Well, I was very happy to see independents run so high because it's a beautiful thing when independent thinkers are recognized for really pushing the agenda of the people. At the end of the day, for me, I spent a lot of time just really focusing my time, my energy, my agenda on really representing the people directly. I think that people have gotten to the point that they want representation. They want their politicians to just be honest with them. Just speak to them directly and just tell them the facts. And from the time that I got sworn in back in 2021, I promised the people that employed me as their representative that I will always be upfront, I will always be direct with them, and I will always share with them what is really happening. Because at the end of the day, they employed me. If it was not for those voters, I would not be here. And I just thank God that they continue for the 3rd time to give me this opportunity so I could continue to finish the work that I started on their behalf.
All right. And Fonzie, I believe you had a question or a comment for the senator?
Yes, Senator, congratulations. This is former Senator Adler Fonzie Donnerstog. I just wanted to congratulate you on a great run. And I had a question for you because I'm looking here at the results and it appears, and I could make a distinction between your style of leadership and the style of leadership of Senator DeGraff. What would you attribute your number 2 and number 3 positioning, what would you attribute it to? Because one of you are outspoken, which is yourself, and Senator DeGraff is a little soft-spoken.
Huh?
At least I feel so.
DeGraff is soft-spoken when he needs to be.
Until it's time to speak.
I was gonna say.
I think he is. I mean, I don't really hear him with any level of aggression, or I mean, Senator Heiliger come across as being a lot more passionate.
I don't really like the word you use, aggression. And I think a lot of times in politics, when it comes between genders, if you have a man that speaks about something very forthright, you hear them say he's passionate. As a woman, they'll say, I'm being aggressive. I am in a situation, I'm in a world where I have to defend the people at all costs. There are going to be situations where I have to deal with it with diplomacy, and I deal with it in a very humble manner. And there's going to be times when I'm in a situation that I might have to turn it on a little bit more, because my job, whether some people want to accept it or not, is I have to represent. And sometimes that representation takes a little bit more pushback as opposed to just sitting back and being passive. So you might see me with different personalities, but each situation calls for different things. And whatever the situation is, I will make sure I do what I need to do to represent the people to the best of my ability.
All right.
And I wanted to say, just, in defense of women all across the world, is that women, especially in the political arena, they are equally as passionate as the men. And sometimes when they go out on the floor, the community and the world look at them and say they're not behaving in a ladylike fashion. And the gentleman to the in this case, it would be to the right of Senator Francis Heiliger. He is very adamant when testifiers come in. Senator DeGraff is anything but soft-spoken. He tells them, he will say, I'm not voting for this bill. I am not giving the governor this. And, he says it, and then Senator Francis Heiliger would say the same thing, and it would come across as the woman being, aggressive. And I think that we just need to be a little bit careful with our words, but to defend women all over. No well-behaved woman is remembered in history, so we'll continue to be the
Listen, remember Fireborn, okay?
Yeah. Raven, I believe that you had a comment for or a question for the senator.
Congratulations, Senator Francis Heiliger, on your reelection.
Thank you.
So I would love to hear you speak about what you were most proud about in your campaign.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. What I was most proud about during this campaign was my minimalism. And I'm going to explain to you why. This particular campaign, I was so determined to understand how our voters wanted to vote. I did not run my campaign how I normally and typically would. And I'm going to be direct and honest with you. I would normally run stuff in the newspaper. I would normally do YouTube ads. I did none of that this time around, because I said, you know what, Alma, I want to see if the public is paying attention to what is really happening in the legislature. I want to see if they're really paying attention to the people that are representing them. So this particular campaign, if I tell you I handed out cards, I would be lying to you. I did none of that. I literally reached out to the public all year round. I made sure that anything happened, I went to the airwaves all year round and I shared with them. So it was never a situation for me where I had to just wake up in this short period of time and try to campaign. They were hearing from me every single week to know what's happening in that legislature, because at the end of the day, you don't hire somebody and then they just walk off. I was hired by the people to represent them, and I was always there to make sure that they knew what was happening as their representative. So for me, the minimalism, I really wanted to focus on seeing how they saw us as candidates, and they did not disappoint. And I'm happy I didn't disappoint, because when my sister just called me, she said, Alma, you got the most votes today. I said, what do you mean? She said, today you are number one with the votes. You came in third early voting, and you came in number one on election day. I said, what? I didn't anticipate it, because I always have this thing like, Alma, you're so passionate about certain things. You're going to have people that love you, and you're going to have some people that don't agree
with you. But at the end of the day, once the people in general know that you have a good heart, you genuinely are making decisions you feel is right for them, that is what should matter. And I appreciate the public for really coming out and saying that they hear me.
Yeah.
Because they hear me. And that's all that really matters for me.
Thank you for that. Before you go, I believe Jenica had a question for you.
Well, as one woman who wears the label aggressive with pride, and I don't believe that it is a negative at all. Senator, first of all, congratulations to you. I think that you are correct. Your advocacy and your vocal contributions in the legislature have certainly helped secure your victory. What I wanted to ask is, why do you think your colleagues did not support your effort to have the legislature petition Congress to allow the direct election of Attorney General? Why do you think that that was not supported by your colleagues? And is that a measure that you think you would be bringing again in the 36th?
I will continue to bring that. You know why? Because I'm going to repeat it again. The people have spoken. When you have individuals that have come to you and tell you 73.6% in the District of St. Croix, 71.6% in the District of St. Thomas, St. John, and they said to you, we want to elect an Attorney General. But the very people that they put in office is saying no. And I think the reason why that has offended me so much is the rationale why some of my colleagues was telling the public why they don't think that we should be able to elect Attorney General. I heard on that Senate floor that some of my colleagues said that the reason why it shouldn't be done is because electing a senator and a governor is one thing, but they don't have enough basic common sense, or they don't have enough understanding to elect Attorney General. You have senators making statements like, well, the Attorney General could get bribed. Excuse me? Are we not elected officials? What would stop anybody from bribing us either? The point is you elect people with integrity that even if somebody made those attempts, they would shut it down immediately. And there are over 43 states that have already turned to electing an Attorney General. Out of the territories, I think 2 of them have already signed on to elect Attorney General. But somehow we are still here in the Virgin Islands, even though a referendum was done and the public was told the representatives, this is what we want. Our representatives in there are saying, no, you're not smart enough to elect an Attorney General. And I will never accept that. Because if they're smart enough to elect me, they're smart enough to elect somebody to be their Attorney General. Period.
Well, you said it there, Senator Heiliger. I want to thank you again for calling in, and we're going to look forward to see what is coming about in the 36th legislature from you.
Alrighty, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and I do believe we have Senator DeGraff on the line. Senator DeGraff, I want to congratulate you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
All right. And Senator DeGraff, what are your thoughts this evening? Number 3,606 votes so far that we've seen here from the St. Thomas, St. John unofficial results. How does that make you feel?
Oh, that makes me feel very good because experiencing my 5th term, I feel as excited in my first term. So now to be the 5th term, I feel just as excited, and to have the people have the confidence in me. I have to give the credit to my family, God first, my family, my staff, my campaign committee, a small, powerful committee. They have endured year after year, and we've got it done. Here in the territory, so I'm deeply humbled and gratified by the people. Thank you to the people most of all.
All right. And Ponce, you had a statement for Senator DeGraff?
Hey, Senator
Soft-spoken DeGraff.
Hey, Senator DeGraff, congratulations. This is former Senator Donna Stogg.
Oh, good evening, Senator. Thank you very much, man.
I referred to you as, what did I say, mild-mannered?
Soft-spoken.
Soft-spoken, they're saying that you loud. No, but...
I come from old school. If you're saying something, I can't hear you. I don't know if you got cut off.
No. We're here. We're here.
I was waiting for you to express yourself.
Yes, I came from old school. I mean, I always plug in them old school flavor, where you speak when you're spoken to. You have ultimate respect for everyone. So, I mean, that's the way I grew up. That's the way I do my leadership. That's the way I represent the people. I am taught by my parents to not down anyone because everyone is someone. So I start off with that and you go from there. I campaign every day. So I start my campaign and I've been reelected. Campaign starts tomorrow because the people have needs every day. So, that's how I go about. I show up to work every day. I don't miss work. I love my job and representing the people. It is priceless to me.
Is there a chance that you're going to be in a majority?
Well, I've never run from being in a majority, but I'm not the type of person to go along to get along. I believe opposition is healthy, and I will always have a voice because I'm hired by the people. I'm not hired to go along with anyone. So even if I'm in the majority, if something that comes across that I don't agree with, I will not support it. I'm not that type. I don't need to be liked by going along to get along.
All right. Congrats again.
Thank you very much, sir.
Danica, you had a statement for Senator DeGraff?
Well, I congratulations, Senator. I think it would be lovely to see you again in the 36th. And I just wanted to know whether you were thinking of any particular legislative priorities for your next term in office.
Yes, thank you very much. And my major priority that I'm looking at right now is the same $15 billion that's coming into the territory to rebuild our total infrastructure, our roads, our schools, our facilities. I'm looking at legislation in terms of putting a fee on the contracts to the contractors for this money, disaster relief monies, and put that money into our infrastructure stabilization impact fund that would allow for us going forward to have funds in present to maintain all of this infrastructure that we're going to rebuild. So again, don't tax the people, utilize the money to the fullest and see if we could get that going.
Mm-hmm. So Senator, just to piggyback on what you just said, actually to follow up with a question. So does that mean that with the super contractors that come in and assume the role of a prime contractor, that you would be looking out for the small businesses to ensure that they have some level of subcontracting to ensure that monies are distributed here in our economy?
Correct. That's where we start first. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Senator DeGraff, I want to thank you so much for calling in. And again, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you again to the people of the Virgin Islands.
All righty.
These numbers are so interesting. We have a caller?
No, we don't have. No. Tell me what do you find interesting?
The numbers in St. Thomas, between 1 and 2, it's only a difference of 104 votes.
Yeah.
And then what I find very interesting is that between Avery Lewis and Senator Joseph and Blyden, they're all kind of bunched up together. 80 and 11 votes. Those three, they ran really tight together. So with the number of absentee ballots that's out, those three numbers can shift. They're going to make it,
can fluctuate.
But it may fluctuate where one may bump up, one may come down. And I think that would be like the only major change in the St. Thomas and St. John district. But again, it just speaks these numbers and how the individuals fall. Because while Milton Potter is a registered Democrat, he's ran under the party banner of the Democrats. Milton Potter doesn't identify, the public doesn't identify Milton Potter as a Brian Roach Democrat. He's a Map Potter Democrat. And so when you see that the number 1, 2, and 3 in the St. Thomas district are individuals not aligned with this administration, based on 2 years ago, the governor won and won handily in that St. Thomas district. it's telling me that there is some pushback against the administration in that district, that there is some discontent with the Brian Roach voters and supporters with maybe how he's governing, it's how he's governing, because ultimately the buck stops with him. But the top 3 vote getters in St. Thomas aren't necessarily individuals aligned with the administration, and the person that the administration threw their weight against and behind is locked in.
Number 5
is locked in the 5th position with 2 other senators. I don't know if y'all.
No, it is definitely interesting. I mean, territorially, when we look at the senator at large numbers, Bolquez with 7,237 votes, with Monsanto with 4,053 votes. So even with these absentee ballot numbers coming in, we're not going to see a difference there in any way or anything like that. So it does, but we heard from the senator and the presence. Raven, what from his response, your feelings?
I honestly think that presence-wise, at least for me, I think that I felt the presence more of those top 3 than I did number 5, in all honesty. And maybe part of it is what Alma explained, in that technically her campaign was not limited to election season. Like, she was present year round, and that really stuck. I think that maybe moving forward, that's something that future candidates should consider, that push come to shove, maybe not relying on the administration to kind of throw their weight behind you, try to campaign year round.
So I'm sorry, thank you so much for that, Raven. I do want to go over just the territorial numbers before we close out. For Delegate to Congress, we have Stacey Plaskett with 9,988 votes, with Ida Smith 2,218 votes, and Ronald Picard with 730 votes. So these are the territorial numbers that we're seeing here for the district, with both the senator at large and then also with the delegate to Congress. And so it's interesting to see, and of course when the absentee numbers comes in as well too, what these numbers are, the final numbers are going to look like. That is something that we definitely can look forward to. Final thoughts, Jamila?
My final thought.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you. I'm sorry for that. But I want to thank you because we are running out of time. But I do want to thank you all for all of your insights this evening. It truly was a pleasure. And to you, the viewers, we appreciate you for joining us for WTJX's live coverage of the 2024 general election results. Stay with us as we now join PBS for their special coverage of the presidential and congressional elections. I'm Marcelina Ventura Douglas. Take care.